Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the sim racing platform known as iRacing, one of the premier sim racing platforms available to those on personal computer or PC in short. And tonight marks round 3 of the 12-round calendar, and we are completing our tour of the United States today with our final stop at Road Atlanta. Of course, tonight we'll be taking a look at the Coach Dave Academy stroke Next Level Racing lobby. That is Lobby 2. We've switched lobbies around due to the technical issues we were experiencing with Lobby 1 last week, those continued technical issues, and we're hoping that this switch up will help alleviate those technical issues. So you'll be seeing Lobby 2 live tonight. That's the Coach Dave Academy Next Level Racing lobby live tonight, and then tomorrow we'll be bringing you the Apex Racing Academy lobby. Now, with regards to our schedule for tonight, we can see the timings set in Greenwich Mean Time, or UTC, or GMT in short. We'll be getting underway with qualifying in just under 9 minutes time, and that'll be the 15-minute session to determine who will be on pole for the all-important sprint race. The sprint race, of course, taking place immediately after the 15-minute race, where it's all in, all out, and no strategy whatsoever other than get to the front and take the highest possible position you can within your class over the course of 15 minutes of racing. After that, we'll be conducting our post-race podium interviews. Will be our post-race winner interviews, we should really say, interviewing our winners in both of the classes, within the Pro and the Am classes. Then we'll take a brief break before returning at 5 to 9 for the build-up to the 60-minute feature race, which has that strategic element, of course, with the pit stop. In the commentary box tonight, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, and it's great to be back ahead of another round of racing in the United States of America. Indeed, keen to see how our drivers get on tonight. Now, of course, this series would not be possible to bring it to you without our primary sponsors for Lobby 2, and that is Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing, so why don't we introduce them? So we start off with Coach Dave Academy, as always, and who are Coach Dave Academy, I hear you ask? Well, Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. Whether you're looking to gain a tenth of a second, a whole second, or find a way to better set up the car to suit your driving style, or just looking for the ins and outs and a little bit of coaching, Coach Dave Academy is the place to go to. not for just Assetto Corsa competition anymore, but also for iRacing setups. Indeed, Coach Dave Academy has been expanding into that market very rapidly, and they have got a huge number of offers up for grabs on a weekly basis. Want to know more? Then be sure to go to their website. That's CoachDaveAcademy.com. Meanwhile, we come over to our second sponsor, and that is Next Level Racing. And Next Level Racing, founded in 2009, is the world's leading simulation brand, revolutionising simulation with its industry-leading product range, and with a clear focus on innovation and quality to meet the demanding needs of sim racers. Next Level Racing's designs and technology shall take your sim racing experience to the next level. If you want to know more about their products, be sure to head to their official website. That's nextlevelracing.com today for more information. That website again, nextlevelracing.com. And again, we really do appreciate the input from Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing, providing us with a good portion of our prize pool for Lobby 2, as well as supporting us in running this series, and we're indebted to them for helping us make this happen. Now, at this point, we'd normally come on to talking about the standings, alternatively the teams or the track. But, as many of you will be aware, earlier this week, we lost one of the greatest in motorsport. Perhaps, it could be argued, the greatest individual of a generation to have graced us, not just in Formula 1, but also throughout motorsport. And that is Sir Francis Owen Garbutt Williams, CBE. Born on the 16th of April 1942 and passing away and leaving us on the 28th of November 2021. Tonight we race in memory of the legend who shall be missed dearly throughout motorsport. You'll see on a number of the cars that are featured today are drivers wearing liveries in tribute to the Briton who, well, you could say he was just part of motorsport, but he wasn't. He was a businessman, a racing driver, and a team principal out on the circuit, indeed, one of the greatest. But he was also a father, a friend, and a mentor. And as you can see in the image above, standing there with one of the very early Formula 1 vehicles as part of the Williams racing team under his own namesake, starting off as a businessman before moving into the world of Formula 1, and starting off his Formula 1 experience as a racing driver before moving to team principal. Frank Williams, as he was known in short, not using his full name, was a highly interested man in motorsport, indeed analysing to every level the possibility of being able to take his driving and subsequently the team, which was under his own name, to the next level. Indeed a man who found adversity multiple times over the course of his career, particularly when he took on the role of team principal, that adversity coming into a number of forms. Now some of you will know him, or he was nicknamed by some as the man in the wheelchair. A rather nasty nickname, you could argue, but indeed nicknames stay with people for certain reasons. One of the biggest things that Sir Frank is known for is his ability to fight on against the odds, to fight and punch well above his weight even when everything seemed down. And the most notable instance of this, and the thing that I personally take inspiration from as a commentator and an avid fan of motorsport, is how he responded to when he found himself on death's door, when he was making his way back from France to the United Kingdom to take part of the Great British Marathon. As he was making his way from Circuit de Paul Ricard, it was the case that a road accident saw him in an instant which led to him becoming a tetraplegic. Now, what is a tetraplegic, you ask? Well, you've probably heard of the term paraplegic. That is someone who's typically lost the functionality of their lower spine and beyond down to their legs. They can't walk, they are confined to a wheelchair. A tetraplegic is someone who's not just lost that, but also the ability to typically use the upper portion of their body as well, so extending to the arms. Now, one thing that you may be thinking at this point is, okay, well, that's bad enough. Well, what if I was to tell you that Sir Frank Williams is also known as the world's longest living, as I understand it is to date, the world's longest living tetraplegic? And why is that? Well, tetraplegia, when it was diagnosed originally, and as it's gone over the years as a medical condition, normally saw life expectancy somewhere in the region of approximately, say, 10 to 15 years. Well, Sir Frank's incident was well before 10 to 15 years prior to his passing away. And he went on and fought on, and the man known as the man in the wheelchair fought on still as team principal for Williams. and, well, saw Williams rise as a major star and arguably one of, if not one of the most successful motorsporting teams, at least one of the most successful within Formula 1. Taking a whole plethora of championships and drivers' championships, and the last one, perhaps the most notable one, was when Damon Hill crossed the finish line in 1996 at Suzuka in the Williams racing machine to take the championship crown, the drivers' championship there and then. And in the words of Murray Walker, seeing his dear friend cross the finish line, it brought a tear to his eye, and it brought a tear to the eyes of many up and down the United Kingdom, if not in the world, to see a team punching well above its weight take the crown once again. But it's not just about that. Some of you may remember the more recent event in 2012 when Pastor Maldonado took the win at Barcelona in the Williams machinery then. Williams at that point, a team seen as a team that was out of the running, never coming back again to have an opportunity. And whilst they didn't go on to win any more races, and they haven't in recent years, they have been a team that's continued to punch as high as it possibly can and try their utmost in order to show that even when you haven't got all the money and all the tools behind you, with the determined spirit and that will to be indomitable, you will come back and you'll fight on strong. And the reason why Frank Williams is seen as not just a businessman, a racing driver and team principal, but as a father, friend and mentor, is because his team was built around family. Taken on now by Claire Williams, who recently has, I believe, walked away from the team as well to look towards more personal concerns, and as a result, Williams finally left family ownership towards the end of 2020. You can see in this photo right now on screen all of the wonderful members within the Formula 1 community who've stood by Frank Williams and indeed the team over the years, whether it's ex-racing drivers, alternatively members of family or as the wider F1 media community. They look to Frank Williams as not just a father, not just a mentor, but a true friend. And that is something which is rare in the cutthroat world of motorsport, that you'll find true friends out there. And indeed, one driver who looked upon him very highly and is a rising star right now, having started off his Formula 1 career in the Williams machinery, is George Russell, the British driver who classified Sir Frank Williams as not just a team principal, but as a true mentor and a true friend. And that's why we race in his memory tonight, because he's an inspiration for everyone to just push above their weight and keep going when the going gets tough. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come on to the championship standings. So after the opening 2 rounds, concluding of course with Sebring in round number 2, we can see in the Pro category in the Drivers' Championship, Paul Walton currently leading by 89 points, a good gap now of 21 points over Dan Mori in P2, with Walton picking up the fastest lap in both the sprint and also the feature race, and missing out on that pole position, but still 2 very strong performances from Paul Walton, seeing him now starting to make a breakaway at the top of the table. Dan Mori in pursuit, and Mori having good performances at Sebring as well, particularly in the sprint race with the pole position and the win, but not able to pick up the win in the feature, and as a result seeing himself fall slightly away from Walton. However, that's not to count off Gareth Williams or Lamont Wedder in P3, P4, nor Michael Silver in P5, those drivers all looking to continue the chase after the top 2. Paul Scott in P6, 51 points over a difficult night at Sebring, and as a result now looking to bounce back as much as he possibly can going into this round in order to get himself right back up into contention. He was originally a potential favourite to carry on that momentum within the top 3 going into round number 2 and into round number 3 successively. And we can see there in P7 Stefan Albanese, the defensive driver from Italy who we saw fantastic defending through and through at Sebring. Can he bring that art and craft here today to Road Atlanta? And then Alistair Kirk, Nigel Stock and Josh Wiggins completing our top 10. Outside the top 10 in the Pro class, we've got Nathan J. Scott. They're currently on 38 points. Joint on 38 points with Matthew Proutin, but count back in the end leading to Proutin being in P12. Proutin did not finish in the feature race, costing him some critical points. And we have a what if already with regards to Proutin. If he had been able to finish that feature race, how high up the standings would he be currently? Meanwhile, Koshi Kelly there, down in P14 with his debut in the series, 32 points to his name, and Rick Jansen not able to take part last time out, seeing himself drop down to P15. But Chris Perry there in P19, completing our standings, not able to take part in round number 2, and as a result now the pressure starts to build on Perry. In the AM class, meanwhile, we can see Mark Baker currently leading by a gap of 23 points. A strong drive for Mark Baker in both of the races, culminating in that win in the feature race. A fantastic drive from Mark Baker, and now can he carry that on tonight? Or will we see the rookie, but has proven to be one of the fastest drivers in class and in the overall field by a considerable margin, and that's Stefan Wessels? Will we see the South African continue to show that form, but just nail down that consistency, which has eluded him to a degree, and those little mistakes have put his race positions under threat? He's in P2 on 64 points, only 2 points clear of Davide Favo, who'll be looking to put pressure on the South African. P4, P5, Mark Sykes and Mark Jardine, the two Marks there, both putting in good performances, but Mark Sykes' experience did not finish at Sebring in the feature race, costing him some valuable points. And further down the order, we can see Darren Doherty there in P8 with 44 points after what was a good performance at Sebring to make up for what was a difficult performance at what was Daytona in round number 1. Can he move further up the order on those 44 points? And James Neave there in P10 on 40 points as it currently stands. Outside the top 10 in the AM class, we have Renus Hamren there on 36 points, unable to take part in either of the races at Sebring last time out, compromising his push, but remember we do have the one drop round, and that will effectively now be his drop round. Tom Delaney, Paul Colburn and Liam Tack all getting good points on the board, but Liam Tack being plagued with disconnect and technical issues on the car midway through the feature race, seeing him not pick up any points there. Reece Young, Adam B. Quinn and also Tom Porter and Josh Brown all not starting at Sebring and as a result not picking up any further points. And Chris Keenan making his debut but having the disconnect in the feature race, which was highly frustrating for Keenan, who was looking to get some good points on the board. And Andy Walmsley will waiting to see him return in round number 3 and start to build up a further campaign. As for our team standings, it is the case that right now across the two lobbies, we see that Luxim24 of MV Esports still leading the championship on with V, I should say, leading on 161 points to RD Sim Sport and Apex with MV Esports there on 149. Ignium Spark and Altitude Esports completing our top 5, and then the hunt for the rest of the top 10 could not be closer, with RTA in P6 down to SBMS in P10, separated by only 10 points. As for outside the top 10, NXTGEN Blue are leading the hunt for a top 10 position on 117 points, but as we can see there, the separation between P11 and P20, only a gap of what is 37 points, and it's anybody's game to get back into the top 10, or indeed fight to be the prime contender to get into the top 10. As we look outside our top 20, and we see TRN Orange, Ignium Motorsport Phoenix, and DDR completing our team's championship, with DDR there, of course, only being the one driver of Reese Carroll, who's trying to bring that team on through after what was a difficult time at Sebring. Now, as for the track, we are here today at Road Atlanta in Braselton, Georgia, USA. A very fast-flying circuit, as based on the image provided to us by SimRacingWiki.com. A circuit with higher intensity corners and a very high average speed. And what more to demonstrate that than a reference lap, as brought to you here by Koji Kelly. So as he makes his way out of the final corner and onto the run down towards turn number 1, we're going to see him go on full offensive here into the opening corner, attacking there with a light bit of braking before charging up the hill, roller coaster of circuit, into the left-hander of turn 2, followed by the sweep into the right-hander of 3, and then as he makes his way back onto the throttle through 4 here, now building up the speed in the downhill uphill run towards 5. It's a slalom of corners completely flat out as he makes his way up towards turn 5, snapping on the brakes and trail braking in before stamping back on the throttle to run wide on the apex curve there, so on the exit curve I should say, and now it's the long charge down towards turn number 6. The slowest corner on the circuit, turn 6 here, minus the chicane of course, and as he comes on through turn 6 here, he'll be looking to get a nice smooth exit before cutting into the inside at turn number 7, and now it's all about the exit, and as he gets on the throttle through the left hand kink of 8 here, it's a long run down towards the turn 10 chicane as he makes his way over the crest of Run Ridge, down into the dip, and there he goes into another ridge here as he comes through the right hand kink of 9 very shortly, heading up to 5th gear, up to 6th gear before coming down the hill here through 9 and into the heavy braking zone for turn 10. The two corner chicane turns at the left and the right hander, 10A and 10B as the corners are numbered, and as he makes his way on through the sequence of corners, now going back up through the gears, over the crest of the ridgeline there, a blind summit and down from turn 11 into the flat out right hander of turn number 12 and charging on through to complete the lap. It's a thrilling lap, and indeed thank you to Kelly for providing that. Now, as for the rules, our drivers will be running the iRacing medium downforce setup for tonight's races, and as per usual, in both of the races, our drivers will have one fast repair available, and we can see the standard instant point penalty rules do apply for drive-throughs, and we have still in the feature race that mandatory pit stop requirement where our drivers will need to take on fuel because their fuel loads are restricted to 70% for the start of the race. And as always, changing tyres is optional. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's head to the live pictures and see how our drivers are getting on in this qualifying session which is already underway. We've completed the opening 6 minutes of qualifying, and right now, after the first couple of laps have come in, the first couple of flying laps, we can see that Deegan Fairclough right now leading overall in terms of those lap times. He makes his way up the hill and down into turn number 2 here in the BMW M4, and we are expecting the BMWs to come on very strong here at Road Atlanta, and the reason for that, simply put, is because they are highly stable cars, and we've been hearing in the pre-session practice runs on Tuesday in particular that a lot of drivers both in the Apex Racing Academy and also the Coach Dave Academy lobbies have been experiencing the car becoming very unstable in sectors 1 and 2 in effectively what is the run up the hill through turn 1 and all the way through to turn 6, and really a lot of drivers saying that the car becomes very tricky to carry speed, as we see Fairclough moving out the way there. Meanwhile, Stefan Vessels, he's currently parked in the pits, but once again Stefan Vessels put in a phenomenal job in qualifying so far, as he's just parked up there currently. But as we look away from the pit lane, can Darren Doherty respond here? He's currently the second fastest of our AM drivers as he makes his way over the ridge at turn 11 and down into turn number 12 here. We'll have to see what Doherty can do as he comes around to complete his current lap and crosses the line there. It's not going to be a significant improvement this time, and he is a good amount of time away from Vessels' lap right now. Vessels' lap is a 120.06, Doherty a 120.56, so it is a whole half a second. As we say hello to Darren Doherty in the Facebook chat, and whilst we're waiting to see how things proceed, we are just checking in with our steward, and nothing to report from our steward, so everything is go, go, go. As we do see there's been a bit of an incident up ahead, and that is Josh Wiggins having a moment. What happened to Wiggins? So the rear just completely snapping on in there and coming through the downhill section. That Porsche, the RD Sim Sport Porsche, looking quite unsettled there. Indeed, a lot of drivers, as I said earlier, were talking about that difficulty in getting the car to calm down around the circuit, and I think that is starting to materialise for some of our drivers as they continue to make their way around in this qualifying session. Half the session complete, and now still plenty of time out there as we see Fairclough making his way across towards turn number 9 in the downhill run towards 10 very shortly. But as we look from him to a bit further down our order in terms of qualifying, we've got James Neve here in the Castrol Motor Racing Ferrari. I almost said Honda there because the livery that the car I've always seen that livery on in real world motorsport is of course the Honda NSXs, but we can see the Castrol Motorsport Ferrari here as it comes charging on down the hill, moving out the way, I believe, Neve, of some drivers coming on through. That is one of the Ignium Motorsport machines coming on through. Indeed, everybody trying to find their position out on the circuit and get themselves set up in preparation for that going of racing in terms of going charging around for a flying lap here. And we do jump on board with Neve as he takes us around for a lap in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. So coming across that line and going into turn 1 here, we'll hear him briefly brake into the corner, but as soon as he feels that nose bites, he's got to get back on the throttle. He needs to carry the momentum and keep the revs up as he makes his way over the crest of the hill into 2 before switching back into the right-hander of 3. A very slow corner 3, having to balance the brakes and versus the throttle as he now comes down through 4, and as he makes his way flat out here through the kinks on the straight before 5, coming down heavy on the brakes here, and he's going to be trail braking it into the left-hander before getting back on the front. We can see the Ignium Porsche there getting it very wrong and moving out the way immediately now, of course, for Neve. He'll probably be regretting he hasn't got the toe anymore as he comes into turn 6 here, and you can see really aggressive on the brakes. They're just bringing the car hard into the corner as he now makes his way up through turn number 7 here, and as he exits the corner, very smooth exit there from Neve, and now he's got the long straight to run down, and this is where the Ferrari is going to be a bit slow compared to some of the other cars around it, particularly the BMWs that we'll be seeing, and also stock of course in the Ford GT as we see Maury improves to P10 overall. But what can Neve do as he makes his way through the kink at 9 here? Now he makes his way into the downhill drop into the chicane, heavy on the brakes as he comes into turn 10A, and as he makes his way into left to right combination here, very aggressive starts but very smooth, but he goes a little bit too aggressive onto the apex of 10B, and that causes him to go wide as he now drifts down the hill through 11, flat out through 12 here. It's been slightly compromised, but as he comes on through to take that time, what's it going to be from Neve? It is not an improvement. He stays P20 overall, and that is P17 in class. He makes his way around. Meanwhile, Deegan Fairclough just behind him here. Well, Fairclough finding a way to get a lot more time, and indeed also benefiting from having the slipstream of the Ferrari ahead of him. And Fairclough right now with a 1:19.0. That is absolutely phenomenal there as he trips over Neve, and I think both drivers just getting in the way of one another as we see Fairclough now returning. You can see a car coming charging on through as he makes his way on through, and that was the Lamborghini there, I believe. That was Alistair Kirk. Indeed, here is Alistair Kirk as he's making his way around the lap right now. The pro driver currently P14 overall, P13 in the pro class, as he's still got 4.5 minutes this qualifying session to go. And as he makes his way around right now, still plenty more lap time out there as we do look to Mark Sykes in the pit lane here. And you can see running a special livery in commemoration of Sir Frank Williams' passing, the Williams livery there on the car. Indeed, let's just try and get a little bit of a close-up on that livery. It may be the case that we're not able to at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, but if we can later on, we will definitely do so, as he's just parked up there right now and waiting to go once again. Meanwhile, we can see Lamont Wedder here, P12, currently in the BMW M4, and not having the strongest of qualifying sessions here. And I think Wedder just really trying to find some time out and circuit. As hello to all you guys and girls who have just joined us. We're midway through qualifying, and I hope you're all having a great week so far. And remember, this broadcast is being brought to you on the Next Gen Racing YouTube channel, the Next Gen Racing Facebook group, and also Twitch at TX141 on Twitch. It's the case that Wedder right now trying to find some time out and circuit. Indeed, this is not the best of qualifying sessions for the driver as he makes his way across the line. The Dutchman does improve there to P10 in class, but a lot of drivers around him are improving as well, and this is not the way he'll be wanting it to go currently as he makes his way uphill onto another lap. Meanwhile, in the AM class, I can tell you that Chris Keenan making his way across that line right now, and I believe in a Williams tribute livery there as well, harking back to one of the more modern Williams colour cars. In fact, I think that's a tribute to the final wing car driven by Pastor Maldonado at Catalunya in 2012, based on the colour and the HP sponsor on the side. We can see Keenan right now not having a smooth time through turns 3 and 4, and in fact losing the rear end there under braking, and as a result right now it's the case that Keenan will need to try and bring it back together later on in the lap. But can he do so? That will be the big question, and I think right now for Keenan it's one of the situations where he's just not going to be able to find it as he makes his way down towards turn number 6 as he comes into the heavy braking zone here, and it's going to be a long way home for him in terms of at the start of the sprint race. If he starts this far back in class, it's a lot of work, but we will wait and see what he's able to do, the Belgian, as he makes his way around here down through turn number 8 and through into 9 very shortly. But that's the challenge here, of course. This is a very different circuit from our opening 2 circuits because the average speed of the lap here is much higher than what we saw at Daytona and also with regards to Sebring. Now, of course, Daytona does have the oval aspects. We're not including those. We're talking more about the cornering aspects here, and it is the case that the average speed here at Road Atlanta is very high, and as a result that is catching a lot of drivers out because it's here where you have to balance the rear of the car. And with the medium downforce, it applies some downforce on the car, but not as much as some drivers will want. We see Chris Keenan crossing the line there. It's not an improvement, as Davide Favo does improve slightly, but stays P30 overall, P10 in class. Quite light on the amateur drivers here today. We've got a lot more of the pros attending as we look back towards our overall leader right now, Deacon Fairclough, who with a phenomenal lap so far, almost half a second clear. Oh, goodness me, and behind, I believe that is Jack Wyborn in an instant there with Ed May. We're just going to take a look back at that very shortly, but I think Ed May has jumped to the pits. Let's take a look. So yes, we can see that Ed May going onto the grass and then cutting across the front of Wyborn. I think a bit of a miscommunication between the two drivers in terms of where to place themselves, and they both jumped back to the pits in the end with only a minute of qualifying to go. So right now for a lot of drivers it is a case that they're not going to be putting in any more laps, and I think they may have relegated or resigned themselves to whatever may be at this point, as we are seeing right now Gareth Williams making his way around in the BMW M4. We ride on board here with the BMW M4 driver, currently P7 in class in the Pro class and P7 overall, as he makes his way into turn number 5 here. Now Williams, of course, very strong driver. We saw that at Daytona in particular, and we also saw a reprisal in what was Sebring. Can he make it another good qualifying session here? Well, right now it's not the ideal qualifying session, particularly because he'll be starting right in the mid-pack, and that's not where you want to be here. You want to be starting up front, so that way you're not caught up in the potential entanglement into turns 2, 3, 4 and 5, although we'll have to wait and see, of course, how our drivers mediate that, and our drivers have been warned about keeping it sensible on the opening lap, particularly through the first 5 corners, because of how those corners sweep and encourage drivers to stay in line. But we can see here, focusing on Williams, he's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him as that traffic moves out the way and gives him a bit of a tow there. Another one of the Next Gen Racing machines as Williams comes through the chicane to turn 10 and immediately gets back on the throttle here and comes over the brow of 11, and as he makes his way into 12 right now, will Williams be able to improve here? He was up in sector 2, but he hasn't improved in the other sectors. It's not an improvement for Williams, I don't think, and that is his qualifying session complete, as now he offers the tow to the driver who came through behind him. But what what about Ed May? As May makes his way here down through the right hand of 12 and crosses that timeline. Can he improve? Well, Ed May does not improve. He stays P3 in the end, and a lot of drivers have not put in any more laps. And what I believe in the AM class, pole position has gone to this man, who after doing one lap effectively decided to park it out. In fact, he's done a couple more laps than that, but mostly got it done on the first lap. Stefan Vessels has taken pole in the AM class, and meanwhile in the Pro class, well, we've still got some drivers making their way on through. We can see here we have got Daniel Merchant making his way around right now as he comes through the corners. We'll wait to see what Merchant can do. I don't think he's been able to improve, has Merchant, so he stays P8 for the time being, as meanwhile we see Stuart Taylor making his way around as he comes down the hill here, and he's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him right now. That is the Ford GT of Nigel Stock, and in fact as we look to Stock, who makes his way through first and running the all-black car there at the moment, he crosses the line and Stock does not improve. And what about Taylor? He does not improve either by the looks of things. A lot of drivers really struggling to improve over the course of the remainder of the qualifying session, and that does mean that Deegan Fairclough has taken pole position in the Pro class. We can't show you his car because he's currently not in the pit lane or out on circuit. He's just walked away for a brief moment, but Deegan Fairclough has taken pole with a 1:19.047 overall and in the Pro class, and this qualifying session has been a challenging one. I think it's going to set us up for a very difficult race, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, as right now everybody settles down, makes their way back into the pit garage and gets ready to go once again here. As we say hello to their Vintage Toy Rush in the YouTube chat. Is this the usual race shown on Wednesdays? Unfortunately, Toy Rush, it is the case. We've had to swap the lobbies around due to the technical issues. So the Apex Racing Academy lobby is coming tomorrow. Not tonight. I'll be bringing it to you tomorrow. And with regards to Mal from there, please show Merchant the Legend. And that's, of course, referring to Daniel Merchant. And, well, we've shown you to you. And that's no problem at all. As now we are forming the grid for what is our sprint race. So as all of our drivers line up right now, let's take a look at the grid for you and see how they all got on. Deegan Fairclough in the end taking pole position by almost half a second over what was Prouty. May and Walton line up on row number 2. Kirk and Williams on row number 3, followed by Wiggins and Merchant on row 4. Maury and Seal on row 5, and then Taylor alongside him. Vessels, the AM driver, taking pole position in the AM class in P12. Outside of the top 6 rows, Wedder and Scott on row number 7, followed by Stock and Kelly. Then Williams and Doherty, Baker and Albanese, Neve and Jensen, and Scott and Mills completing our first 12 rows. Then outside of those 12 rows, heading beyond, we can see it's Coburn and Wyborn completing row number 13. Sykes and Sykes on row number 14. Not family, but both of the same surname. And then we've got Keenan and Farvo, P29, P30. And last but not least, Liam Tack completing our grid as we now look back to our drivers out on circuit, as we now look to the pack as they're forming and getting ready to go racing. And it's expected to be very tight here as they get ready to go, where the grid should be complete any moment now. And the question will be, how will they all navigate that opening lap? That lap that is hyped to be a very tricky lap for all of our drivers as they get ready to go. And we can see everybody making their way to the grid. Just 1 or 2 cars missing. Paul Scott, I believe, the last car to join is starting in P23. You can see that small gap in the grid, and he's just been given the countdown. And indeed, I think he's now in place as we are good to go. And we will see the safety car take us away. And it will be Deegan Fairclough who takes us to the green. As all of our drivers pull off the line here, Deegan Fairclough making his way away first and foremost here and taking it very gingerly. And you can see really bunching everybody up there coming through the chicane. The safety car's already gone, and Fairclough bringing everybody together as they are just very slowly making the way. And then Fairclough's now gone for it. He's gone very early, has Fairclough. He wants to get the break away before they all come charging on through. And as they haven't even made their way through the final corner yet, Fairclough has gone, and it's now the green flag as they come charging across the start-finish line to go on to lap number 1. Now, how will this affect all of our drivers further back? Well, we can see here we've got Walton already under pressure from Kirk as they make their way on through, and then behind them, which enabled the field to spread out quite a bit, should be pointed out. We're not going to see as much potential chaos into turn 1 as what was expected from some drivers, but Paul Williams here having to defend versus Darren Doherty as they make their way up into turn 2, and I think it's the case the British driver will have quite a clean run here as they all come on down the hill and through the sequence of corners. But looking from them to further back, it's the case we are hearing that Albanese's had a moment and is into the wall there. Stefan Albanese having a very bad start, as meanwhile up front Deegan Fairclough making his way through turn 6 and into 7 and leading considerably right now as he makes his way through 7 and and down towards turn number 10 once again. And Fairclough getting a very strong start compared to the rest of the field, and it has worked out for him massively as he makes his way on down. But further back we see Stuart Taylor here. He has got a lot of pressure building up behind him, but he's also trying to put pressure on the Porsche driver of Mori ahead of him, and he's getting the run here is Taylor as they come roaring on down towards the chicane. It's a very long run here. Porsche versus Ferrari. Porsche on the inside, Ferrari on the outside. They come into the heavy braking zone here, and Taylor makes the move. As you can see that Mori does not want to turn this into a massive fight early on. Meanwhile, further back, Nigel Stock there trying to close up to the back of the Ferrari ahead of him as he makes his way out of the chicane and down into turn number 12. He looks to move on the inside here. Vessels, of course, in a different class. So after one lap, it is Deegan Fairclough leading by what is 1.1 seconds over Ed May in P2, then Matthew Proughton in P3, followed by Paul Walton in P5, then Alistair Kirk in P6, followed by Gareth Williams in P7, then we've got Josh Wiggins in P7 I should say, followed by what is Daniel Merchant in P8, followed by Stuart P. Taylor in P9, and then we've got Dan Murray in P10. That is your top 10, and Michael Seal in P11 right now, chasing on, as meanwhile behind him he's got Lamet Wedder, who's putting as much pressure as possible, Nigel Stock in P13, and then Stefan Vessels, our leader of the AM class, making his way through the sequence of opening corners as he now comes roaring on down towards turn number 6 in P14, P1 in his class, and then Nathan J. Scott, P15, completing our top 15 as they all come on through once again through the runner corners and head to turn number 7. Now, meanwhile, whilst this is all happening, of course, we can see that Dan Mori here under pressure from what is Michael Steele alongside him as they make their way down towards the chicane here for a long way to go, only into turn 9 now, and as they come on down, it's Porsche versus Porsche. We can see Lamet Wedder trying to make this free wide almost. He's looking to go through the middle as the door between the two Porsches remains open. Wedder's going to make it free wide, but backs out in the end. Mori backing out on the outside there, and it's the case that Seal gets the move done, but that was very close. I was wondering there if Wedder was going to try and go for the Moses manoeuvre. It would have been a challenging one as Fairclough comes across the timeline to set the fastest lap of the race so far in 19.2, and meanwhile we're hearing that Paul Walton has gone a little, well, he's trying to go, I believe he's being attacked here by Prouting, or as they make the way up the hill here, and in fact Walton has passed Prouting for P3 as they come on through. We're hearing that Liam Tax had an accident further down on circuit, but Walton up into P3. How did he do that? We'll be able to bring you that very shortly as we're waiting for the replay footage to come on in, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen. So he had the pace out the final corner, and then he looked to the outside here, and this is brave by Walton to try and go all the way around. You could see the rear of the Lamborghini sliding on entry, but he's got it done. Walton now up into P3, and building that momentum is the RD Simsport driver here, as Prouting has fallen back to a degree as they make their way onto the back straight once again here and charge down towards the drop into 10. Now further back from these guys, we can see that Mark Baker here in what is P20, P3 in class right now, he's clustered up behind Rick Jansen, who is behind, who is battling opponent here between Baker, and that is of course Darren Doherty as they make their way in the run down towards 10. It's a long way to go for these guys as they charge down, but this is difficult for Baker because he's got to find a way past Jansen, but in a way that doesn't sacrifice his ability to go after Doherty. And remember, Jansen of course will want to catch up to Neve ahead. As we can see here, it's the case that Neve going slightly defensive initially, but in the end backing out, going defensive. Fairclough comes across the line and moves the fastest lap to a 19.0, and as they make their way around through turn 11 and into 12 here, we can see the pack stand as they are in the hunt for that P17 position, but all of them trying to come together in short notice. As we see at the front now, it's the case that Neve's got that pressure from Doherty. He's trying to find a way in front. I think Doherty's trying to get the message through here. Look, you've got to get a move on. In fact, Doherty, by going off the racing line there, has lost out considerably, and in fact he's had to back off to Jansen coming on through, and now Doherty has got Baker all over the back of him. Of course, this is the battle for P2 in the AM class as they make their way through 4 and up into 5. They come rip-roaring through the slalom here, and as they make their way down, I'm hearing that Stock has had a, oh goodness me, and Stock is into the wall. What's happened to Nigel Stock? This is coming down through the run to 5 here, and does the rear of the car just give way into 5? He made his way on through, hit the curb, and it was the curb, the rear left wheel just bouncing too much, and the suspension could not take it, and as a result he was then driving off circuit to avoid causing a collision. But looking from him now to Josh Wiggins here, the Porsche driver RD Simsport, who's got a lot of pressure burning behind him. That is Daniel Merchant, who's putting the pressure on as they make their way through 10, and as they come through the chicane here, you can see now how Wiggins having to have more eyes in his rear view mirrors. We see that Merchant inching closer and closer as they come through the corner to go onto another lap. We ride on board with the BMW driver here as he makes his way through. The Frenchman comes charging up towards turn number 1. Will he look for a move on the inside here? He's close, but he's not close enough. He makes Wiggins go defensive, and that may be enough to give him an opportunity to go on the offensive. But you can see there Merchant losing a lot of momentum up the hill, and Wiggins, I think, with the way he placed the car, it may have caught Merchant a little bit by surprise there as they make their way now through 3 and into 4, and as they come through the right hand and go charging on down towards 5 at this point. It's the case that you can see that in the run through this sequence of corners, the BMW just able to carry so much more speed. Excuse me, I think that's that confidence factor that the rear end's not going to slide. And you can see it again from Merchant here, just the amount of brute power that's in that BMW M4 by comparison with the 911 RSR as they make their way through turn number 7 here. And as they come over the curve, Merchant taking a lot of curve. Meanwhile, it's the case that Wiggins being very sensitive to the curve there as they make their way around. Now, we are hearing that Michael Seal has had a major moment out on circuit as we look away from this battle for what is P7. And we look down to where Michael Seal is. What's happened to Michael Seal? He's currently here in P14, but I suspect that something has gone a bit wrong for the Ignition Motorsport driver. Well, this was only moments ago coming through what was turn number 6 and then heading around into 7 here. Does he get it wrong under braking? He hits the curb and it unsettles the rear of the car as he got on the power and still going for a spin. To be fair, a fair pirouette to a 360-degree turn. You can't discredit him for that, but not what he would have wanted coming out of turn 7 as he gets it wrong again, going over the mountain, and well, over the ridge I should say, and still having 2 moments on a single lap, and those tyres are very, very hot, those rear tyres. He now resumes race. Oh, goodness me, and coming right back in amongst a pack of drivers there, and it's the case that as they come on through right now, we can see Wyborn here having a hold off Sykes behind him. That's Mark Sykes as they're battling for P20, and that is effectively P5 in class, in the AM class, as we see Wyborn here holding on. And look in the rear of the group, you can see Chris Keenan getting involved here as the Belgian says, okay guys, how about I get involved and make it a three-way battle for the top 5 of what is the AM race, as they make their way down through turns 3, 4 and come roaring on towards 5. And as they make their way down the hill here, you can see it's the case that Chris Keenan gets it a little bit wrong and has to lift off the throttle. And now behind we'll see Seal close up quite rapidly here, I suspect, and Seal will be in a very difficult position as we can see Sykes here looking for the move on Wyborn. He hasn't got the run, but he is trying to attempt Wyborn to go defensive, and Wyborn did oblige there briefly, cutting him off. And we can see the Ferrari versus the Williams Racing delivering a fantastic shot there. Frank Williams on the side of the car. Brilliant tribute from Mark Sykes as they make their way down. The Next Gen Racing orange driver here making on the charge and trying to find just that extra inch to take on Wyborn as they make their way down towards turn number 10. They've still got a long way to go here, and indeed as they make their way on down, we're only halfway through the sprint race. It's the case that as they come into the braking zone here, I do not think Sykes is going to have enough this time, but he's almost there, and he will be priding himself on the fact that he can keep this close and he can keep building that momentum as they come through turn 10 and up into 11. And now as they make their way down towards 12, can he find, oh goodness me, and that is Keenan being turned there. Now I'm not sure that it looked as though there was contact, but Keenan having a major moment. But meanwhile, with all that happening, we can see Sykes battling Wyborn here into turn 1. He's gone to the inside here, but Wyborn's going to try and come back, but Sykes parks the car there after going deep and just about blocks off Wyborn's return. A very adventurous move, and Sykes is up into P5 in class, P20 overall, as we will take a look back at what happened with Chris Keenan. As he's making his way over the crest of the hill here now as he came on through, I believe it was that was Seal on his inside. Now, did Keenan just not see Seal, or was it a case that Seal was a bit too close? That's for the stewards to decide, but the two drivers coming together there and Keenan having to return to the racing a lot further down the order, of course, as meanwhile a little bit further up we can see it's the case that we do have here, by the looks of things, Williams, who's looking towards Prouting and Kirk as they make their way through on the corners, and that is Prouting, Matthew Prouting here making his way on through. The RP Motorsports Pro-Am driver here running in the Williams livery as well as they come charging on through turn number 12. Beautiful shot there as they come across the apex, and as they now charge onto for them what is lap number 8 with still 5.5 minutes to go. We can see it's the case that Prouting trying to push on, and Alistair Kirk found his way on through in the end between these guys as they make their way through turns 2, 3 and 4. And how did it happen? Well, we'll take a look back very shortly, because right now you can see Wiggins all over the back of what is Williams there as they make their way through the corners. As we jump on board the gearbox here of Williams, I should say, looking back at Wiggins, it's the situation where you can see as soon as they get onto the sweeping straight, it's a case that the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars just lose out because they're so intensely balancing the throttle, whereas the BMW can just go full attack. But then when we come into these medium speed corners or the low speed corners, that's where the Porsche really gains. And you can see there Williams just not able to get on the power as comfortably as the Porsche, but now he is on the power. That's where the BMW will thrive. as they make their way down towards what is turn at number 10. Once again here it's the long charge, and as they go charging down this straight, we look back to the exterior pictures, everybody lying astern once again as they make their way down, all trying to get the toe and just build up that speed in the long run down. And as they come into the heavy braking zone here, we can see Wiggins looking for that potential move. He's not quite there, but Williams went deep and Wiggins went with him effectively, and both drivers, they're carrying a huge overspeed, and Wiggins now backing off, and that lets Merchant through into P7 as they come around once again. Now as they make their way through the corners, well, let's take a look back at how Alistair Kirk got up into P4 on the previous lap. So it was a run down effectively towards the chicane here, and you'll see that Kirk's on the outside. Meanwhile, on the inside is Prouting, and as they made their way through the corner, well, they went side by side, but in the end, Kirk able to keep the outside to inside run through the chicane, and the TGC driver making his way now down towards turn 12, and he got the move done there and then. Nice move, and he's up in position for it as they make their way through the corners once again. 3.5 minutes remain. Our race leader right now, Deegan Fairclough, with a 6-second gap over Ed May in P2 right now, and May doing everything he can to try and chase down Fairclough, but Fairclough just seems to be in a world of his own as the drivers make their way around the circuit. Further back, I can tell you that Walton here in P3, he's pressing on as well, but Walton just does not seem to have anything to catch the BMWs, and we did suspect the BMW was going to be strong, and we can see two BMWs leading up front within the Pro class and overall. As meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you that Wiggins once again here on a mission to try and find a way past while the BMW's in the Porsche. This time he's got to work past Merchant here. He looks to the inside, but Merchant parks it there on the inside line towards the apex, and as they make their way through the corner, Wiggins looking to try and sneak the nose in there, but he's not close enough to brave it. And as they come over 11 and down into 12, he's running out of time now as Wiggins if he wants to try and get that position back. And as they make their way through 12 and up towards another lap right now, I think for Wiggins he's going to need to save it all for one good exit out of turn 7 and be as close as he possibly can to the back of that BMW in front of him. He wants to be glued to the back of that rear spoiler on that BMW M4, and that's the only way he's going to get that move done, unless Merchant makes a mistake, of course. But right now you'd have to think that it's the case that the Frenchman ahead is holding the Briton down and holding him down very effectively as they come through the corners. But meanwhile, looking back to our AM drives, I can tell you that Darren Doherty right now chasing after Gareth Mills, and to be fair, Gareth Mills has come up into P3 in the AM class, and once again Mills showing his ability to gain places, and this was only moments ago when he passed Darren Doherty. So we can see here Doherty on the left-hand side of the pitch and making his way through. I think Doherty's had either a slowdown or a mistake, because Mills had the overspeed and went round the outside into turn 1. But Mills keeping his head down and chasing down Paul Scott, who is, of course, in the Pro class here. And Paul Scott breaking away at the bottom of your picture there as we went back to live pictures. And we can see Doherty falling back by comparison. But meanwhile, looking from these guys to further up, it's Wiggins versus Merchant. Again, he's a bit closer this time, Wiggins. And you can see Merchant is reacting to Wiggins. As soon as he gets close, he's starting to pull to the inside down into the chicane, and that's what Wiggins needs to keep doing. He needs to keep that pressure on, because if he does it enough, he will cause Merchant to outbrake himself into the corner, or Wiggins in the end will just have such an overspeed run down into the chicane. He will have that opportunity in the moment. He's going to look for into turn 1. He can't quite find it, but you can see he's getting closer with each and every corner as that Porsche bounces out of the corner, and now they make their way up the hill through 2 once again. We ride on board with Daniel Merchant looking back here, and you can see the attitudes in the cars so different. That Porsche literally on edge and being literally forced through the corners. Meanwhile, for Wiggins, it's the case that it's almost as if it's no effort at all. But I can assure you, both drivers will be sweating at the steering wheel right now as they make their way through 5 and down towards 6. And this is where Merchant opens the gap up. But now we come to 2 corners where the Porsche does well. They're both medium to low speed corners where it's all about travelling the rear round as rapidly as possible. The BMW, of course, with the engine in the front takes longer. It's got innate understeer, whereas the Porsche is designed for the oversteer. And as they make their way through the corner, it's the case that, in fact, Wiggins not as close this time, having a bit of a poor run through the corners and instead being further back. As behind them we can see Stuart Taylor here in the Ferrari has got Lambert Wedder behind, and Taylor already doing a bit of weaving on the straight here. He'll be allowed to do one weave, but if he keeps doing it, it will be something the stewards will take a look at. You can see Wedder all over the back of him as they make their way down to the chicane. Now it's going to be the Dutchman on the inside, Taylor on the outside here. Taylor's going to try and hold that outside line, but in the end I think Wedder's got the job done. Indeed the Dutchman has. He's up into P9 as we go on to one final lap now of racing, and after what is so far 11 laps, we've got Deegan Fairclough leading his way through the opening sequence of corners, as behind Ed May, well, he's got Paul Walton inching closer right now, and it is the case that May trying to hold on as they come charging on through the corners, but will he be able to? That's the question, as we're hearing that Wiggins has found his way past Merchant, but he's got it wrong here as Josh Wiggins as they make their way on through. What happened is the question. Let's find out. Well, this was only moments to go. Now we're going to see as they're making their way up into 2. Wiggins was on the inside, but he went a bit deep and took the cones with him for measure. And Wiggins with a brave move there, but just not able to park it up in time. And as a result, giving the place back by going off circuit. But meanwhile, we look from one RD Simsport driver to another. And Walton chasing down May right now, but it's a long way down towards turn 10. I think Walton needs to be closer than this. Even though that Huracan has got a lot of straight line speed, it's not enough versus that M4. And as they make their way on down, I think it's going to be a fruitless exercise. But speaking about one driver who has a fruitful race, as he makes his way through the final corner, it's going to be Deegan Fairclough who takes the win in the sprint race at what is Road Atlanta. A brilliant drive from Fairclough, and in the end Ed May will come home in second in the Pro Class and overall there in P2 ahead of Paul Walton, and in P4 will go to Alistair Kirk. A great drive from Kirk ahead of Gareth Williams, Matthew Broughton, Daniel Merchant in the end just about holding off the driver of what was Wiggins, and behind them we can see Wedder coming through ahead of Stuart Taylor, Nathan Scott in P11, Kelly in P12, and then Stefan Vessels takes the win in the AM class, and a brilliant drive from Vessels in a world of his own ahead of James Neve, Paul Williams, and as Paul Williams crosses the line P14 we'll see Mark, oh goodness me, and Mark Baker just crossing the line after a bit of contact with Paul Scott. Baker brings home P2 in the AM class, P16, and we can see Gareth Mills in P18, P3 in the AM class, another great drive from the South African as well, ahead of Darren Doherty in P4 in the AM class, P19 overall, Nigel Stock completing our top 20, then it's Mark Sykes, P21, that's P5 in class in the AM class, and behind him it's Michael Sill who comes home P22. What a brilliant race, and as all of our drivers make their way round right now, I believe it is the case that our drivers are queuing up into a degree of a formation here down the back straight as a tribute to Frank Williams. So if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to go silent for a moment whilst our drivers are bringing their cars home. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, as Rick Jansen brings the order home in the pits in the end, the Team Racing Netherlands driver will now be preparing for our post-race interviews. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're now going to be getting our post-race interviews underway, and we're going to be starting off, rather than with our race winner in the Pro class, we're going to do something a little bit different this time. We're going to be kicking off with our AM winner, so without further ado, let's get Stefan Wessels into the interview room. Hello, Stefan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Stefan, another brilliant drive from yourself in the sprint race, taking the win by a considerable margin. How's it feel to make 2 sprint wins out of 2?
Well, it's good. I enjoyed this race. I tried to stay out of the pros' way as much as possible. Yeah, it's a bit hairier being in there and doing the same pace, but not trying to not affect their race. So yeah, it's a bit interesting, 1 or 2 cents, but other than that, all good. But it's fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And in qualifying, a phenomenal qualifying lap from yourself right out the box. Did you think that after you put that lap in, it was all said and done, you could just put your feet up? Because we saw you come into the pits and not go out again.
No, I changed tires. I went out. I was half a second up, and the 2 right-handers at the end I messed up, so I was a bit bummed with myself with that. And then after that, yeah, traffic and things like that. You get like 1 good lap on the tires, and then after that,
Yeah, definitely. I can see what you mean by that, and it was enough to get you pulled by half a second in the end. And so going into the race, was your plan, as you say, just to simply hold the lead and let the pros through where needed?
Yeah, look, the idea is to do my race according to the rules. The pros need to make the way past me, so I'm not going to defend against them, but I'm also not going to break on a straight to just let them come past. So the idea is just to do my race. If they are battling, I don't want to get involved. I ideally don't want to overtake them, so I'll just sit back, and if I'm not being attacked by another AM driver, I'm not going to attack the pro in front of me. So yeah.
A very sensible approach, and I think many will agree in the chat, a very smart approach to the racing. And now looking ahead to the feature, you find yourself once again starting further back than your peers. What's the plan for coming through the order?
Just survive. I don't think I need to overtake. I just need to survive. I just want points. I don't want to be at the back again. I don't want to have an accident again. I don't want someone taking me out. So honestly, just survive.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature, but until then, congratulations on the sprint race win once again, and we look forward to seeing how you get on.
Cool. Cheers.
Hearing there from Stefan Wessels, happy with his performance in the sprint race there, and a very sensible approach as well of just making sure that the pros can come on through and they get close to him, and only really fighting with them or pushing them when he's got that pressure from the AMs behind him. Sorry, not the yes, from the AMs behind him, I should say. But now, as we wait for Deegan Fairclough to head along to what is the interview room at the moment, he's not currently available, so it may be the case that we are going to miss Deegan. We'll have to wait and see. Very good drive from Deegan Fairclough, to be fair, and a fantastic start which dropped the pro field behind him, starting literally on the exit of turn 10 and then just bolting for it, and something which you can see drivers do every so often. Some drivers will take the car up to line, and in fact we're hearing that Deegan Fairclough has just arrived outside our interview room, so we're just going to bring him on in. And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Deegan, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, Deegan, you there?
Yeah, sorry, my settings, I couldn't hear you. Sorry, my bad.
That's no problem at all. We can hear you loud and clear now. Congratulations on the win in the sprint race in the pro class. How's it feel to have taken to the top step of the podium?
Yeah, thank you very much. Super happy, really. A little bit worried on the final 2 laps. My headset was dead, so I couldn't hear anything. So I was just looking at the lights and seeing when to change, but it felt really different and completely weird, like really weird to drive with no sound. But other than that, super happy, and hopefully the next race goes really well. Hoping for some good results, making up some more positions, and yeah.
Well, just taking it a step back from the upcoming race with respect to qualifying, a dominant qualifying performance from yourself, half a second clear of the rest of the field. What was the secret?
Literally just full send everywhere, to be honest. Literally being on edge, you have to be at this track because it's a fast flowing circuit, and you literally got to get every corner spot on to get a good lap together.
I see, and then translating that into the race, we saw you go very early. As soon as the car was about to leave the chicane, you just put the pedal to the metal and went charged off. Was that always the plan, to just try and drop the field behind you?
Yeah, that was kind of the plan, because like, to be horrible, everyone at the back would have to go for the corner when I'm literally just on a straight heading down, and that was my plan. And then, but traction control kicked in, and then I dumped the clutch and then nearly spun it. So I'm not like hoping to do that ever again. So.
Well, it worked out this time, and now looking ahead to the feature, what's the plan? Because you'll be starting right from the back and looking to fight your way through.
Well, literally just take every overtake, well, as many overtakes as I can, sensibly. Hopefully no silly overtakes really, because it's an hour-long race. There's no need for it. So let's just see what happens and what I can do from there, to be honest.
Well, with that, we wish you all the best for the feature, but until then, congratulations on the win in the sprint, and we look forward to seeing how you get on.
Thank you.
Hearing there from Deegan Fairclough, happy with his performance, and particularly the on-edge nature of his qualifying lap, and also the on-edge nature of his race start. Was, he said, he almost dropped it and made a mistake which would have seen him drop down the order, but it wasn't to be. Instead, he nailed the start and pulled away and had a gap which was more than enough. But of course, driving without any audio towards the end now, I can only imagine what he must have been going through on those last two laps. But he kept it together, and now it's all about bringing it back together once again for the feature. Speaking of which, we will be back in approximately 5 to 7 minutes for the feature race. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back then with only 3.5 minutes to go before we go charging around Road Atlanta once again for the second part of tonight's proceedings. And as we see Stefan Albanese here coming charging on down through what is turns 3, 4 and up towards 5 here in the rather blue coloured now BMW there, of course, running blue in commemoration of Williams as he makes his way a little bit wide out of the corner. We can see all our drivers just getting themselves acquainted with the circuit once again and getting ready to go. And we'll see Mark Bake here, the Team Tetra Rouge driver, coming charging on through, and a lot of drivers, of course, having their ups and downs here at Road Atlanta, much like the overall undulations of the circuit. And whilst we are waiting to go racing, we do say hello there in the chat to KTMs in the Facebook chat. We can also see Corey GT35 there in the Twitch chat. We say hello to you guys, and that is no problem at all, KTMs. We're very happy with regards to the fact that you're happy with the tribute to Frank Williams. And that's great to hear that it's brought a smile to your face by the sounds of things. And indeed, Frank Williams, of course, a massive inspiration for a lot of us who would have been watching Formula 1 in particular over the course of the 80s and the 90s, if not earlier and later, seeing the Williams machines go on round and hearing the venerable words of commentators talk about the Williams machines as they were coming to take either the checkered flag or battle for the championship or even outside the championship. And of course, with regards to Frank Williams, as we were saying earlier, multiple challenges, not just off the circuit but on the circuit, and some of the darkest days in Formula 1 are associated with Williams, such as the death of Ayrton Senna in his third race for the Williams outfit. But at the same time, with those challenges does come the need to bounce back, that resilience which was embodied by the Williams racing team, and none more so than Frank Williams himself. So even in the darkest days, and I think it's a lesson that we can all learn in life, and particularly with the recent circumstances we are going through with the COVID-19 pandemic, of course separate entirely, but I think it's a message which no matter what happens, we have to be able to come back stronger and know how to move on. And indeed it is the case that a number of our drivers will be all too aware of that, as we do see our drivers making their way around the circuit right now. And we see Gareth Williams here making his way through, and I do believe his livery's not quite loading, so we are just going to make a quick update of some of our drivers' liveries here to try and fix that. We do seem to be having a slight issue with loading some drivers' liveries, but hopefully, just hopefully, they will clear up as time goes on here, and they are continuing to be added to our drivers' cars as they're making their way around now. Indeed, there we go. We can see Gareth Williams' car now lighting up as expected, and we are just working on that for you. Of course, all the little technical gremlins we are gradually knocking out the way, and we also have brought some graphical improvements to the stream today, particularly with the presentation of the cars, and hopefully everything is coming through A-OK. And do be leaving us some feedback if you are seeing anything that's either wrong, alternatively you'd like us to improve or tweak something. Do let us know, because we like to improve. And one thing that we're planning to have come, if not for tomorrow night Apex Racing Academy lobby, then definitely for round 4, we are hoping to modify our timing screen on the left hand side, so we also get to show you who the top drivers are in each class over the course of the race. So it won't just be a set of all, say, 17 drivers at this point with them intermixed between classes, but we'll also be able to separate out the pros from the AMs, and therefore give you updates on how all of our drivers in the different classes are doing at the same time for your viewing pleasure, as we come to the end of our final practice session in the build up to the feature. And any moment now we'll be switching over to the grid as all of our drivers start to form up here, and we look down to the grid very shortly indeed as we get ready to go racing here. And we see all of our drivers now lining up on the grid, and it will be the combination of Paul Coburn and Liam Tack who take us away from the front, as we will be this time doing the full lap around the circuit before we go racing. We had the partial warm-up lap at the sprint race, and now we will be doing the full warm-up lap before we go racing, and it'll be to Paul Coburn to take us away as we now look at that grid. So, starting off then, on pole will be Paul Coburn. Having had that difficult race in the sprint race, he has the opportunity now to start on pole and run away with things. Liam Tack alongside him on the front row. Elwyn Sykes and Dan Murray on the second row. Dan Murray, our lowest place pro in the sprint race, and therefore starting at P4. Rick Jansen and Stefan Albanese starting on the third row. Stefan Albanese having that disastrous moment into turn number 3 on the open lap of the sprint and never recovering from it over the course of the rest of the race. Chris Keenan and Davide Favo starting our fourth row, followed by Jack Wyburn and Michael Seal completing our top 10. Mark Sykes and Nigel Stock on the 6th row, and then after that it is Darren Doherty and Gareth Mills on row number 7, followed by Paul Scott and Mark Baker, then Paul Williams and James Neve on row number 9, Stefan Vessels and Kosh Kelly on row 10, followed by Nathan Scott and Stuart Taylor. Lambert Wedder and Josh Wiggins on row number 12, and as we're heading towards the very end of our grid, we can see Daniel Merchant and Matthew Proutin line up P25, P26, Gareth Williams and Alistair Kirk on the penultimate row, and then starting at the back, Paul Walton and Deegan Fairclough, the two drivers who will now have to find their way through the mix and see how they can get on over the course of an hour of racing as we see our drivers making their way on through. But as we now clear the grid out the way and we get ready to go racing here, and we can see it is the case that right now we're just making our way on around behind the safety car. We're not even halfway around the lap right now. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen, because once that safety car moves out the way, we're expecting Coburn to take us away rapidly. And will he decide to bunch all the drivers up in the drop down towards the chicane, or will he take a different approach compared to Fairclough at the start of this race? Only time will tell. But as we look further down the order right now, can Paul Williams find a way to get a stronger result here after what was a reasonable performance, to be fair, in the feature race? But we have, in the sprint race I should say, but we are expecting him to come on a bit stronger in the feature. He typically thrives in the feature races where there's that calmer aspect to the race in terms of there's that strategic element, and he's able to take his time with the race. He gets more settled into the races from what we've seen so far, but we'll wait to see how the Briton gets on as he comes through turn number 6 here as part of the parade pack. Further back, of course, Paul Walton here starting P29, and he will know he needs to get the best possible start to keep the fast charging Fairclough behind him as all the drivers now start to cluster up through turn 7 and head down towards a 10. And now we wait. The big question will be, as we look further up, what will happen at the front here? Will we see everybody come together, or will we see the grid make their way round through the final couple of corners and start making their way out to turn 12? What will Coburn do? And that is the question, as we can see right now, looking at Stefan Albanese here, the Italian driver looking to bounce back after what was a very difficult sprint race for him, as now they all come down the hill here, and we can see Coburn and Tack just staying behind the safety car and staying relatively close to it, not bunching the field up by comparison with what we saw previously. And in fact, I think they're going to go a bit later. And it is green as soon as they make their way past the pit entry there. So Coburn goes much later, and he gets a good start for it. As you can see further back there, Rick Jansen, Elwin Sykes and Albanese side by side. The three going wide into turn 1. And it looks as though here Sykes is going to have to back out of it, as he does see that Seal behind there tries to come on through as well. And Seal up the inside into turn 2. And that's the outside effective as they come into the corner. But as they make their way through 3 and 4, he's able to get it done, as we can see further back there. Elwin Sykes dropping like a stone as Farbo comes on through, and now got Nigel Stock trying to find his way through, trying to muscle his way on through as the Ford GT driver as they come charging on through the corners here, and as they make their way through the sequence. It's all relatively calm so far, although we look further back here and we can see a bit further back, that's Matthew Prouting, who just gets past there. Was Nathan Scott, and he going around the outside as we see at the head of the camera. Deegan Fairclough has gained a lot of ground already alongside Wiggins, and further back Walton hasn't gained as much, and Fairclough already up into P23 and trying to go around the outside of Lambert Wedder, and he does so there, and Fairclough has literally gone charging through the field. He's already gained the best part of 7 places, and we're only halfway through the opening lap. But now, as we can see ahead, Josh Wiggins here going defensive on the run through 9, but they'll put him on the outside of 10 as he's trying to hold off the Ferrari of Stefan Vessels here. The AM driver staying out of the way of the trouble. He said he was going to stay out of the way of trouble if he needed to, and we can see Wiggins defending versus Fairclough here, but Fairclough's going to go all the way round. Wiggins is going to get boxed in slightly as Paul Williams finds himself on the inside of 10B, and as they make their way through the corner, you can see that has cost Fairclough massively, as he now needs to try and find his way past the Ferrari driver, who's dropped quite considerably as they make their way through the right-hander. Is after 1 lap leading right now Paul Coburn, who's leading by only 0.2 of a second, with Maury all over the back of him in P2. Then Rick Jansen in P3 as he makes his way through the course, followed by Liam Tack in P4, Stefan Albanese P5, then Michael Seal in P6, then Nigel Stock P7, Davide Farvo P8, Elwin Sykes P9, Jack Wyborn P10, and then we've got Chris Keenan P11, followed by Mark Sykes here, and then we've got Gareth Mills in P13, followed by Mark Baker and James Neve, completing our top 15, but plenty more drivers behind us. We've had an instant further back, and I think that might be Deegan Fairclough involved in a major moment coming down the hill from 4 to 5. What happened to Fairclough? Just was moments ago, side by side with Wiggins, and Wiggins in the end tapping the inside there, and 2 does not go into 1 coming out of turn 4, and both drivers I think will have a word from the stewards after that, but Fairclough coming off the worst of the 2 of them massively, and as a result now has got it all to do again with a crippled BMW, which surely will be coming into the pits at the end of this lap for a fast repair. But meanwhile our leader Dan Mori now making his way on through as we look a little bit further down, and we can see Liam Tack here dropping down the order as the AM drivers. We've got the pros of Seal, Albanese and Janssen coming on through, but right now I think for Tack he's just got to play this smart as we see Chris Keenan meanwhile defending here versus Elwyn Sykes as behind them you can see Gareth Mills here having to deal with the pressure from Neve and Baker as they come through. Neve in the pro class here, and we see Mills looking to the inside of Sykes as they go into turn 1. He's going to attempt here, but he backs out very early, and in fact way too early as we've got Tack off there at turn number 1, and Tack drops all the way down the order, and now Gareth Mills has got that pressure from Neve coming around his outside into 3, but I don't think it's going to be the case that Neve's going to get it done, or is he? As Mills, oh goodness me, and behind we've got Darren Doherty going for a spin, and we've got one of the Ignium Motorsport cars into the wall, and Darren Doherty having a major moment with another driver. And I'm wondering how that all happened. I do tell you, as we can see there, we've got a Ferrari going wide. That's Stefan Vessels taking it 2 out of the rallycross line as they make their way down towards 5 now. But a lot of drivers involved in major incidents. What happened to Darren Doherty? Was his making his way through? I think there may have been some contact with another driver, and then the RD Simsport Lamborghini of Paul Walton gave him a tap there, but we need to try and see where it happened earlier on to understand how it all kicked off. But that looked very, very close. Well, this is a better camera angle, and it, well, goodness me, it's very hard to tell, but it does look as though Darren Doherty got caught up, and Wiggins there gained as a result of it. But I don't know if Wiggins was the progenitor of that incident. We can analyse that all we want later on, as right now, as we look back to our live pictures, Murray continues to lead here, and Paul Colburn now in P3, our AM leader. Well, he stood at the front at the start of the race, and now he's holding on to it as further back, as all of our field is now starting to spread out to some degree. We see Favo here, P2 in AM, and it's P7 overall for Favo, as further back we have got the James Neve here, and he's on the offensive versus Sykes, and of course Neve here needs to get his way past the AM drivers. The pro driver of Neve right now has got a huge amount of pressure building on him, because the longer he's stuck behind the likes of Sykes, he makes easy work. As Sykes there, and Sykes has got Mills coming around the outside, and as the back off does Mills, as it's a case that a lot of drivers trying to get very, very adventurous through the kinks in towards turn 5, and you can see there Scott flashing his lights in a bit of frustration I think at Gareth Mills, and the fact that Mills had to back out so much. And you can see that Scott here with Mark Baker behind him, and Paul Scott in the similar situation whereby the pro driver is trying to cut his way through the AM field and just cannot seem to find a way through without the AM drivers tripping over one another as they make their way down towards turn number 10 once again. And as they come charging on down, this time Scott just holding on, as meanwhile Mills here looking for another move on Sykes. Well, he's been building for this some time, as Mills, he tried it in the run to 5, it didn't work, but now he's going to try and do it in the drag race down towards the turn 10 chicane. And as they make their way down here, Sykes on the inside, Mills on the outside. Sykes backs it off there in the drop, and as a result Mills is up in position here, and I think Mark Sykes is thinking about the bigger picture, because he would normally fight a bit more. Oh goodness me, Sykes getting it all wrong on the corner, and into the wall is Mark Sykes, and he will now have to do repair work on the car. And as we see right now as our drivers come on through, we do have the cluster of drivers coming up towards turn number 1 here, and you can see further back Paul Walton making the move on the inside of Gareth Williams into turn 1. He's got the move done as Walton, as we can see the RD Simsport driver of Wiggins coming out the pits a lap down after repairing the car, but Walton here continuing to build up through the field. He's got some damage on that Lamborghini, we do know he's got some damage on that car, but he's still fighting on all the same as he comes rip-roaring on through the sequence of corners up towards turn 5, or the sequence of kinks, because they're not classified as proper corners in the run from 4 to 5, and as they make their way down towards 6 once again, Walton on the charge as Fairclough now returns to the circuit. So it's a 1:18.6. Deegan Fairclough is flying right now, but the problem for him is he's all the way down in P26. He's got a long way to go in this race. Indeed, all of our drivers have. We're not even 10 minutes in, and there's already been some major incidents in this race. And now speaking about another major turn of events, we can see Albanese here on the right side of your picture battling with Seal down into turn number 10 here. Seal trying to gain the position on Albanese as they make their way through the chicane. No way through this time for Michael Seal, as we ride on board with the Porsche driver here. Now, what can he do is the big question, of course, still. Well, I think at this point what he's got to think about is how much pressure does he put on before Nigel Stock tries to close up behind as they make their way into turn number 1 here on lap number 6. Well, I think Stock is just going to be watching these guys eagerly and waiting for them to make an incident occur, or one of them to make a mistake as they come through the right-hander at turn number 3, and into 4 they come. And as they make their way now out of 4, the long run down the hill they make, and as they come charging through the dip and up towards 5 here, you can see again the BMW just so planted by comparison to the Porsche. It's almost like driving on ice for the Porsche drivers, and that's why the quotes that we heard from the Apex Racing Academy drivers in their practice session yesterday, it's just like driving on ice once you've got those tyres up to temperature. It's a very hot track out here today as well, and that will not be helping those cars which are sensitive on their tyres. The BMW M4 much kinder in terms of just being able to be rugged on its tyres compared to the Porsche as they make their way out to 7, and now the long run down towards 10 here, and you can see that Sill's as close as he's ever going to get in a straight line race versus the M4. He's using the toe to close up. He's into top gear here. He's going to look around the outside as he makes his way down to 10, the whine of the turbo, and as they come into the braking zone here, he can't find his way through, but he tries to get Albanese to go deep, but Albanese parks the car in apex. He collects the car together as we're hearing that more drivers are coming into the pits with damaged cars. We're hearing that Kelly has come in, Koshi Kelly, and as meanwhile Sill now looks to try and find that move again as they go onto another lap. You can see Sill actually having to back off there for a slowdown. Hold up a second, I'm not sure what's happened here. I think we have got a load of retirements. I'm just going to find out what has happened, ladies and gentlemen, as to what has gone wrong, and I believe we are having a restart of the race. I'm just getting confirmation as to what has happened here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it would seem that there has been an infraction of the regulations for the Lamborghinis. It appears that the Lamborghini Huracans have started the race on 120 litres of fuel, which means that they are beyond the 70% fuel tank rule. So there seems to have been an error with regards to the setup of this race. At the moment, all of our drivers are being asked to retire from the race, and we will be coming back soon with a restart of this race effective, which is unfortunate because this was already building up to be a crescendo, but it's still the case. But we are seeing some drivers who've yet to, I think, get the word through their ear that they need to stop racing, as we see Mills and Williams here charging down towards turn number 10. But that is very unfortunate, and we are now just waiting for the official confirmation of the restart. But that's why everybody has jumped to the pits, as we're just continuing to check in with the stewards right now. And indeed, I think it's the case that more and more drivers are being called into the pits now. So as a result, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. We're going to be approximately, I would assume, somewhere in the region of 5 to 10 minutes. As soon as we get any updates on that, I'll let you know in the respective broadcast chats. We'll see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again for the build-up to the feature race with only 2.5 minutes before we go racing once more. And unfortunate that we did have to go for the restart there, but with the Lamborghinis infringing the rules, it would have been unfair for the race to continue, as the Lamborghinis would have effectively had a lot more fuel in the tank by comparison with the rest of the cars. They would not have had to have spent anywhere near as long in the pits. So as a result, we are now waiting for the build up here to race number 2 to that feature race in the Coach Dave Academy lobby, the NXTGEN Racing Academy lobby as well. I'm also sorry to announce that unfortunately, due to technical issues with the car, we are not going to be seeing the return of Paul Walton. He will not be rejoining us as of the restarted feature race, so that will mean that we lose him from the front row and we'll see all of our drivers promoted by a position. That's unfortunate for the Porsche driver, and as a result he will not be taking part in the feature race tonight, which he will be missed, but we hope to see him back for Silverstone in a week's time in fighting condition, of course, as everybody just putting in the laps right now, and we still do have plenty of drivers waiting to join in on the lobby as they are continuing to join right now. As we see there from Titan Taylor in the YouTube chat saying shout out to Alistair Kirk's dad, and I believe Alistair Kirk here making his way around right now, and we can see the TGC racing driver here making his way on through the opening sequence of corners, and he shout out to him and his father as he makes his way on through, and to the TGC racing team, of course, who are competing fairly and squarely in the championship here in lobby number 2 and doing very well overall so far, putting in some fantastic scores, as we can also see there in the chat K-Teams saying about the technical issues that happen. Indeed, we'll learn from it, we'll make sure it doesn't happen again. It's just one of those things that goes wrong on the night, but we have measures in place to get things fixed as rapidly as possible. As we continue to look around here, we are due to start forming the grid very shortly, and we are a little bit light on numbers currently. I'm presuming we're going to be seeing more of these drivers join very, very soon. Otherwise, we're going to have a very light grid when all is said and done. But I do think we're going to be getting those numbers pop up soon, as I think a lot of drivers are just not going out onto circuit. They're staying in the pits right now and opting not to put any laps in, as we can see everyone making their way around right now. And I believe that is, yep, indeed, we've got a number of drivers now in the pit lane. We can see Mark Baker there just parked and up, and behind one of the Ignium Motorsport machines as we go to the formation of the grid once again. So as the grid forms this time, it will be the case that Paul Walton will not be starting on pole. Well, he will be listed as pole, but I believe he will not be here for the purposes of the race. So Paul Walton would have started on pole, and that will promote all the positions here by one. And joined along alongside him will be Liam Tack, and then Elwin Sykes and Dan Murray on row number 2. Rick Jansen and Stefan Albanese on the 3rd row. Both drivers looking to get a strong result after a difficult sprint race. None more so than Albanese with that disastrous start. Chris Keenan and Davide Favo on the 4th row. Jack Wyborn and Michael Seal on row number 5. Mark Sykes and Nigel Stock kicking off our next set of rows, and we can see just after that Darren Doherty and Gareth Mills, P13, P14, Paul Scott and Mark Baker, P15, P16, Paul Williams and James Neve on row number 9, and completing our top 20, Stefan Vessels and Kosh Kelly. They will be looking to cut their way through the order. In P21, P22, we have Nathan Scott and Stuart P. Taylor, Larrett Widder and Josh Wiggins at P23, P24, and then completing our final 3 rows, Daniel Merchant and Prouting, followed by Gareth Williams and Alistair Kirk, and then last but not least, Paul Walton and Deegan Fairclough once again, as we now see the commence of the formation lap, as we see all of our drivers now start to make their way around the circuit, and we can see with regards to those track temperatures, quite high at the moment, a local temperature of 26 degrees, well in fact the track temperature has come down considerably, and as our drivers make their way around right now, we remove, in fact those track temperatures have come down somewhat, and I think those times are not going to be as hot as they previously were. We can see it is Liam Tack now who takes our field away from the front row, and it'll be Elwin Sykes who joins him on the front row in the end, with the loss of Paul Walton as well, with the engine problems with the car, not able to get that Porsche out. They just cannot seem to get the engine repaired after it just seemed to hit an issue when they stopped the car in the pits at the end of the aborted feature race. As our drivers make their way around, and we say hello to Zoronic in the Twitch chat, and we hope you're doing well, Zoronic. And to all those of you who have just tuned in now very recently, we hope you're all enjoying the show so far and that you're doing A-OK for a Wednesday, as our drivers make their way through turns 5 and down towards 6 here. And indeed, our pack just coming on through right now as we look to the blimp, and we can see all of our drivers in their full glory colours as they come out of the opening sequence of corners and make their way on down. And as we look further back, indeed, these two, we saw Fairclough in the first instance of this feature race have a phenomenal start, gaining 7 places very early on. Will he be able to do it again? Or will it be Paul Walton, who we're focused on here at the back of the pack? Will Walton be able to find his way on through more successfully this time and not get caught up in the instance on the opening few corners? That will be the challenge, of course. And the RD SimSport driver will now have a little bit more knowledge in hand with regards to how things go. As we look back towards the front of our pack, we look back towards Liam Tack here, as we can see all of our drivers making their way up to turn 9 and into the downhill drop to 10. And as they gradually make their way on down right now, everyone will be thinking about how to run it. And of course, Liam Tack this time will be taking our drivers away. Will he take a different approach to Coburn, or will he decide to go late as well, particularly over the rise of 11? That's what we saw Coburn take us as he just made his way past the pit entry. Will Tack take a similar approach here, or will he make us go even later? And that may catch out a lot of drivers in terms of how late he could potentially go. Well, we'll have to wait to see as we bring the camera back down, and it's time to go racing. And we're going racing. It's to the green as Liam Tack takes us away for the feature race once again. And immediately Dan Morey going on the offensive here. The Altitude Esports drivers, Tack gets it horrifically wrong. Coming out the opening corner, not even going on to the first lap. And as they make their way through, Tack falling down the order like a stone. As we can see, meanwhile, all of our drivers coming up through turn number 1 here. And as they make their way on through the opening corners, we see Michael Seal already on the charger. He looks to go round Chris Keenan on the outside here. Through turn number 3, there's contact with Keenan. And Seal is knocked off the circuit as we see Nigel Stock having to take evasive action. Indeed, Mark Sykes as well in there as Stock makes his way on through, and Gareth Mills also comes up further back here. I can tell you that as we look to the leader briefly and then back to the blimp, it is the case that all of our drivers now falling into an order as they make their way through. But Michael Seal, with that disastrous bit of contact, has dropped down as we see that's Dan Morey in the Altitude Esports Porsche, and behind him is Gareth Williams, and both drivers there having a horrific start to their races. As meanwhile we look back up towards our leader, and we can see that Elwin Sykes right now in P2, the leader of the AM class. He's let Stefan Albanese just run away with things, and now it's the case that Sykes is trying to hold off Wyborn behind him as we see the 2 AM drivers nose to tail in the Ferrari 488s as they come roaring down towards the chicane, and into the braking zone they go. Wyborn's going to go late on the brakes, and I think he's got it here as Wyborn moves up into P2 with a classic pass into turn number 10. You can see Janssen now trying to come on through. So after one lap, it's Stefan Albanese leading by 4 seconds over Jack Wyborn in P2. Those are the 2 leaders in the respective classes, Pro and Am. Rick Janssen in P3, followed by Elwin Sykes in P4. Then we've got Mark Sykes in P5. Nigel Stott looking for the move here and going in early, trying to take the move off of Mark Sykes. Indeed, he does so here and now separates the 2 Am drivers as they make their way up the hill. Then we've got Gareth Mills in P7, Mark Baker in P8, followed by Paul Scott in P9. And then it's Chris Keenan completing our top 10. Behind him, James Neve in P11 with Stuart P. Taylor in P12. Behind him, Deegan Fairclough in P13 and getting very close right now to the back of what is the Ferrari of Taylor as they make their way out of 4 and in the run up towards 5. Now where will Taylor go for this in terms of defending? Well, he's not going to have an opportunity to, as he gets it very wrong on the exit of 5, and Fairclough just cruises on by, and Deegan Fairclough, who started at the back of the field, is already up to P12 after 1.5 laps right now, and Fairclough is flying as we've got a number of drivers in the pits, none more so than Liam Tackles. So Paul Williams had to jump to the pits, Stefan Vessels, Josh Wiggins, and we also lost Paul Colburn, of course, and I believe Nathan Scott as well has made a visit to the pit lane. So as all of our drivers make their way on down right now, we can see it's the case that Deegan Fairclough here now trying to go after Neve as he gets closer and closer in the run down. Meanwhile, further up the road, I'm hearing that Nigel Stock's coming through. And as we look a bit further up the order, we can see Neve making the move here on what is Keenan, and we can see the Fairclough coming through as well. Now behind, Stuart Taylor's now got to find his way past the BMW, and this may be a bit more difficult for the Ferrari driver as they come roaring down through the corners. And we've got more, well, I think we've got a slight glitch on our timing screen, ladies and gentlemen. That will be fixed very shortly. That is not accurate. We will get that fixed for you as all of our drivers seem to be changing positions as if it's going out of fashion, but we will just reload our timing screens and get that sorted in a very short while. And indeed, I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that to clear, but right now it is the case that your leader is Stefan Albanese in P6, and we see Rick Janssen behind in P7. Indeed, that's going to be updated right now, so we are going to get those correct times here as they make their way through. Just a little bit of a timing glitch there on our side, and as we can see further back here, we've got Mark Sykes who's in a battle with what is Elwin Sykes here. The 2 Am drivers going toe to toe as they come through the corner, and Sykes goes wide. Mark Sykes, that is the rear of the 2, as we can see behind the but that is Deegan Fairclough. He's got past Neve, and now he's trying to find his way past Scott as well, and the man is absolutely flying. As we can see, Paul Scott having to try and out-drag his fellow BMW drivers. They make their way down through 9 and up to 10 here, and as they come into the heavy braking zone, Scott's going to defend, but will it be enough? I think it's the case that we're going to see Fairclough go all the way around and hold the inside on exit, and he does indeed as they make their way up the hill. We can see Neve now trying to go for the move here as they come down, and as they roar down the hill, Neve gains the position at 2 places lost for Paul Scott and a place gained each for Fairclough and Neve as they go on to lap number 4. Now behind them, it's the situation that I can tell you that Dan Morey right now will be feeling a little bit of pressure from the guys behind. We see the BMW in particular there of Merchant trying to come through, Daniel Merchant, who makes his way out to turn 1, and as they go roaring up the hill in towards turn 2 right now, you see it's the case that the Frenchman not able to come on through as he makes his way through the sequence of corners, but we can see a Ferrari getting it wrong there. That's Favo, the AM driver, just getting it all sorts of wrong, and we see all the drivers coming through, and that's Wedder trying to also squeeze his way through the sequence as they make their way around into turn number 5, and further back I can tell you that Mark Baker right now chasing after Williams here, but of course the drivers in 2 different classes, and Baker right now will be trying to hunt down Darren Doherty, who's just ahead of him, who we can see just up the road there. Dan Morey having to hold off Merchant as they make their way through turn number 7, and we ride on board the gearbox here of the Porsche driver, who's now got 2 BMWs who are very thirsty for positions, and as they make their way through 8 and down towards 9 and 10, you can see that the M4 is getting closer and closer and closer, and he's going to peel out very soon as we go to the blimp camera here, and we can see that it's going to be Merchant on the outside as they make their way down towards 10. Wedder's also trying to close up in the rear of the camera shot, but he backs off as Morey goes in deep here to brake and park it on Apex, and he blocks off the come through of what is Merchant as he tried to come through on the inside there of 10B, and as they make their way over the crest of 11 and down in towards the turn 12, it's a situation that right now they don't change places, but Wedder now will have an opportunity versus his fellow BMW drivers. They make their way up into 1. Will he look for the move or will he wait patiently? He decides to wait. No, and it's not the right time to go on the offensive, and instead he'll look to go on the offensive a bit later on. As 6 minutes of this 1 hour race pass, we completed a 10th of it so far, and much like the original run of it, it has been dramatic, if not very fighty and bitey all the way through, as we see Wedder trying to get himself alongside here in the run up towards 5. And I think the Dutchman here is being very brave in what is a clearly damaged car as he makes his way up through the corner of 5 and down towards 6. No way through so far, but he's going to be looking at it very soon as we see Elwyn Sykes here under pressure from both Paul Scott and Taylor, and the AM driver in a horrible position right now where he's got 2 pros battling for position behind him, and he finds himself, he can't really put the car anywhere, but now he can put it off the racing line here in the run through 8 and 9. Will he decide to stay in it? Will he keep his foot on the throttle, or will he back off here as we focus more on Scott and Taylor? As we can see here, it's the case that Scott manages to force Taylor in behind the AM driver, and as a result Taylor is boxed in. As further back there we've got, I believe that is a 4 wide situation with Dan Moore at the head of this pack, and we can see that's Merchant coming on through past Keenan, and Wedder has been held up as a result behind the AM driver, who's allowed to be there. Of course it's not, so he has to give way, but Lambert Wedder right now losing out massively as they all try to navigate their way down to 10, 4 wide at one point, and indeed we can see that Dan Morey holding firm onto that P12 overall, and what is for him P9 in class as they make their way onto lap number 6. Now further back it is the situation that Keenan has now been passed. He's let off the throttle there to Wedder. He doesn't want to be any part of this. I can tell you as we see that, I believe that is Mark Sykes who's had an off and is now rejoining from the escape road out to turn number 3 onto the run to 5 as he now gets himself back up to speed, and the drivers behind all Concertina are in as Sykes has got nowhere to go other than the racing line, and behind him you can see, oh goodness me, and Baker gets it very wrong on the exit of turn number 5, as meanwhile Paul Walton down in P20 right now will try to come back into the proceedings. Don't count him out yet, the RD Sim Sport driver. He's 19th now with Baker having that moment, and he is on a flying charge right now. But meanwhile looking from Walton to Kelly, we can see Kelly has got the pressure of Merchant as they make their way down, and Dan Morey's already found his way past Kosh Kelly as they make their way down towards turn number 10, and I think it's the case the pro driver here doesn't have the pace compared to the guys coming through behind him, and instead not putting up too much of a fight, the Ignium Motorsport driver, instead focusing on what he can do and the positions he can hold on to as they make their way through the sequence of corners, and they come over the crest of the hill through 11 and into 12 once again as they make their way through the right hander here to complete another lap. But as they come on through, meanwhile a bit further up the road you can see that Stuart Taylor right now as we ride on board with the Ferrari driver trying to hunt down Scott. He just does not seem to have an answer for the BMW driver. He can get close, but as soon as we get through the sequence of corners, we are likely to see again the two of them start to separate as they make their way through. But the difference will be here, of course, is that the Ferrari's got a little bit more fuel compared to how it was fueled in the sprint race, and that may help just settle the rear of the car down for a time until that fuel starts to come out. And of course the car gets lighter on the rear. We'll have to wait and see, but you can see that Scott's able to open up a bit more of a gap, but not as much as he would previously, as we're hearing that Elwin Sykes has been passed by Dan Mori. Now as they make their way out to 7, Taylor getting a very poor exit there by comparison with Scott, and that gap is only going to open to a degree as they make their way in the long charge down towards turn number 10 right now. It will gradually close up now the slipstream comes into play, but meanwhile further up the road I can tell you that Deegan Fairclough has just found his way past Nigel Stock for P3, and Fairclough has literally come from the back. He's already up into P3 and he is flying right now as he makes his way through turn number 12 and heads on around. But this is phenomenal stuff from the Briton as he makes his way onto another lap here. We're not even 10 minutes in and he's already up into P3, and let's see how he got the move done for the position. I think it was quite straightforward in the end. To be fair to Nigel Stock, trying to get as much out of Ford GT as possible. But I think Stock recognising the fact there's only one way this is going to end, and it's going to be a Fairclough coming through. So he backed out of it there in the drop. And also I think that Ford GT not as strong on the brakes. It was a combination of that and managing the car that led to him giving up the position. As we are hearing a bit further down the order, it's the case that Stuart Taylor still chasing after Scott as they make their way through turn number 5 once again. And Gareth Williams into the pits. So he's gone in. And I think Gareth Williams might be trying to go for an early stop here, and the pit stops are going to be very interesting at Road Atlanta, the scheduled stops, because it could be wise to take your pit stop early rather than later to give yourself some space on track, as we do see Scott getting it very wrong there at turn number 7. He's gone in deep and locked up. Now can the TGC Racing driver of Taylor get the move done? It's a long drag race now, and that BMW does come alive on the straights as they make their way down their hedge. You can see Neve closing on Wyborn in a change of place overall, but not in class. But meanwhile Taylor does not defend too hard. He puts it in the middle of the road here. He's going to force Scott onto a tight line under braking, and Scott's going to go all in, but he just about gets it done. There's a little bit of contact there. I think Taylor will feel as though he's just had his nose chopped off in the exit of the chicane, but it was very close between the two of them. They both survived it this time, but I do think that right now Taylor will need to put in quite the lap in order to close back up, as it does seem as though Scott has got a bit of a break. As meanwhile further up the road we can now see Rick Jansen here chasing down Nigel Stock, and in fact I think it's the case, unless I'm very much mistaken, that Jansen has had a moment, because Nigel Stock has got past Jansen for P3. Now how did that happen? Well, we can see Jansen doing a bit of rallycross there on the exit of turn 12 and going straight on, and that explains, I think there was also Nathan J. Scott involved in that at some point, and Stock seizing the opportunity. But to be fair, it wasn't all said and done until he made his way up into turn 3, and as a result Stock really had to work, and you could see the car drifting there on the apex of turn 3, and Stock with a brave move getting it done as he makes his way down towards turn number 10. Indeed both of our drivers do now, continuing to press on as they come rip-roaring on down, and as they make their way down towards turn 10. I tell you, Nigel Stock running in the black liveried Ford GT here in tribute of Frank Williams. The colour black, of course, used in the United Kingdom to show mourning, or mourning the passing of someone in full, and Nigel Stock running with the black colour there rather than the standard livery that he would run, the BTCC Ford Mondeo livery run on that Ford GT. And as Nigel Stock makes his way right now through turn number 12 to go into another lap, currently P3, putting in a solid stint right now, as we see Dan Mori once again coming toe to toe with Taylor here, and this time it's Mori on the offensive versus Taylor as they go into turn number 1, and as they make their way through with 12.5 minutes complete right now. It's intensifying. It's the battle for the top 10 in the pro class as they come on through the sequence of corners, and I think at this point for Mori, he's got to think about where he goes this, as we ride on board with Dan Mori. And as he makes his way through the kinks now up towards turn number 5, we can see it's the situation where, to give credit to Taylor, whereas Stuart Mori almost clips the back of him there under braking, and Taylor having to be very gentle on the brakes into 5 and brake early, and I think that's where Taylor's having to protect the rear of that Ferrari and make sure it doesn't slide, whereas Mori is going to help for leather and just simply going to fall in under braking in the Porsche. They make their way through, but you can see Paul Scott's had a really poor run as well, so all three of them now coming together, and we get the wonderful view here of being sat in the car with Dan Mori as he tries to find his way past the two of them with a double toe. But of course the one thing the BMW at the front of this pack has is a lot of straight line speed, and as they make their way down towards the chicane, we're going to see whether the drivers sort of spread out as they make their way down, and we can see here it's the case that Taylor's going to try and go around the outside to inside. Scott parks it on the inside, and meanwhile we can see that Maury trying to get the cutback, but Taylor defends it and defends it hard, which means Maury cannot find a way on through as they come down the hill. Now meanwhile Stuart Taylor, as he tries to make his way on through, he will see that Scott's just found his way past Jack Wyborn, who's leading the AM class at this point in time, as we see the AM driver's now going to be reverse Moses here by the two pros, with Taylor going around the outside of all the things you would imagine here, and Dan Maury just simply saying, okay Taylor, if you're going to take that approach, I'll just go for on the inside there. But Taylor with a very brave, at the same time however, I would question going around the outside there of Wyborn, but still making that work. That's going to be the overtake of the season for bravery. Oh my goodness, and that is something on itself, as meanwhile it's cost him a place, but I think his heart might be beating a little bit higher, as we can see that Daniel Merchant now coming on through past Jack Wyborn, and the next driver to come through will be Kosh Kelly, as the pros are finding every which way to get past the leader in the AM class here. I think Wyborn at this point is probably too scared to turn the steering wheel, with the thought of another pro coming around his outside where you don't go past on the outside. But my goodness, what a pass that was, and it's not over yet, as we can see that Maury getting a better run out of turn 7 is on the offensive down into 10 versus Scott, as they make their way down into the braking zone here. And can Maury get it done around the outside to inside? I don't think he's got enough here, and Maury has the run, but he just does not seem to have the control of the car to get it down the exit. But you can see, look who's now closing up to the back of this. It's Taylor here, and now he will be absolutely looking for that opportunity to go back up against Maury here. Indeed, the Ferrari driver looking very strong as they come charging on through the corners, as we say hello to DanDans89 in the Twitch chat there, cheering on Jack Wyborn, and Wyborn right now doing a great job in leading the AM class. But we focus here on the battle for what is P6 in the Pro class and P6 overall. You're riding on the gearbox of Paul Scott right now as he makes his way through the sequence of corners, and Paul Scott has got a huge amount of pressure building up behind him as he makes his way out of turn 5 and down towards turn 6 and 7. And whilst this is going on right now, of course the strategy element is going to be the big consideration, and what do you do in this scenario if you're one of these guys, remembering the fact that of course they'll come out in the traffic behind us. We see Scott go a little bit deep there, and we get a face full of Porsches. They make their way out the corner, and now it's the drag race down towards 10 here, as we can see. Watch out for Taylor behind. He's quite far back right now, but he will gain in the double toe of the two adversaries ahead of him as they make their way through, and they make their way down towards turn 10, almost 3 wide here. In fact, in the end, Taylor backing out a little bit as Scott holds that defensive inside. Maury once again tries to go all the way round, and he'll get that inside, of course, into 10B as they make their way through the turn 10 chicane. He's not able to find it, but one driver who does find it, it's Taylor, as they make their way over 11, and now Taylor is back up into P7. The three drivers trading places, but particularly Taylor versus Maury. The two of them just seem to want to fight over that position to be the #1 contender to take on Scott here as they make their way to the end of the first quarter of the hour race. Now as they come across that line, of course, and go on to lap number 13, they make their way into the sequence of course, and you can see Taylor here just so much more confident than Scott on the brakes, and I do think that Paul Scott right now may be nursing an issue with that BMW because it does not look happy under braking. Perhaps the brakes are too hot or the tyres are too warm, but you can see behind Daniel Merchant now trying to come through here with Dan Maury having to look in his rearview mirror and see the Frenchman's BMW coming through, and now Merchant going to try and go round the outside into 6, and as they make their way through the corner, it's the case they are going to go too wide, and they are going to safely make their way through it, but still Merchant behind what is Maury as they make their way through 7 and now on the long straight. But this is where Merchant will be stronger, of course. He'll have the speed, but look who's closing up behind as well. That's Kosh Kelly as they make their way down towards turn number 10. They come all rip-roaring on through all these drivers in the Pro class, of course. And Scott at the head of this pack right now, thinking to himself, what do I have to do to break away? Well, that's a question that only you could answer as he makes his way through turn number 10. And that's, I'm sure, his team principal will be saying on the radio right now as he makes his way through 11 and down towards 12. But you can see there, Taylor's on the inside. He's not quite there, but Taylor is nipping at the bit to try and get on through. You can see now Taylor flashing his lights, trying to be a nuisance. As meanwhile, Maury tries to box in Merchant on the inside into 1, but Merchant fights his way on through there. He has the space and he takes it, but now it's the drag race up the hill, and as they make their way into turn 3, they're going to be side by side here, and Maury goes wide and runs off circuit there, and we would expect, given the number of times drivers have tried to go too wide through there and it's not worked out, and you can see in amongst all of these drivers as Maury drops to the back of this pack, you can see that Josh Wiggins in P24 is now trying to find his way through these guys in order to unlap himself. And that's not a place he wants to be, as we see Jack Wyborn further back, yielding the position to Lamont Wedder. They're, of course, not fighting Wedder in the same class, so for Wyborn, there's no need to fight. Instead, he just makes his way on through as they come through. And their head, oh, goodness me, and is that Dan Maury? That's Dan Maury off circuit there, and goodness me, what has happened to Dan Maury? He's making his way down into 6 here, and as he came through the corner, the rear end I think is going to come out. He went a bit high on the exit curb there, and that unsettled the rear of the car. The rear left lost grip, and in the end he was literally a passenger in his own car as the rear collided into the wall there at turn 7. And goodness me, Maury pushing on the limit, and that's what happens when you go beyond the limit. The car just gives way. But looking from the battle in the midfield to the battle for the lead right now, Stefan Albanese has been leading this race for some time, but the pro driver now has company, and it's in the form of Deegan Fairclough. They make their way through 5 and up towards turn number 6 they come. Now Fairclough having come from the back of the field, Albanese having only come from what was P6, and you could already see here Fairclough trying to make his way around the outside, but Albanese says no and locks the door shut. They now come through turn 7, and Fairclough all over the back of the Italian as they make their way through turn 7. But the one thing we know that Stefan Albanese is strong at is defending. The Italian stallion will defend to the limit of what's acceptable, and as they make their way down towards turn 10, you can see already Albanese literally pulling the car so far over to the left hand side to say to Fairclough, you've got to go round, you're not going to come up the inside here. And as they now come under braking, Fairclough's going to try and go for the cutback, but Albanese goes deep, and as they emerge from the corner, this could be the opportunity that Fairclough was looking for as they come through the right hander here at turn number 12. Fairclough's going to try and go round, but he goes onto the grass and just about keeps the car together there. But Fairclough, I think at that point, will be thinking to himself, okay, you've still got 2/3 of the race to go, don't bin it. But Fairclough on a mission to get on through here, but Albanese proving to be one tough nut to crack as they make their way up through 2 and into 3 once again. And this is where Albanese is strong. When everything's on the line, he will defend every corner, and he knows where to put that car, and it's what he's doing right now as he tries to hold back the fast charging Fairclough behind him as they come through 5. But Albanese goes a little bit wide of apex there, and this could be an opportunity for Fairclough, but Fairclough's going to be made to go all the way around as you can see Albanese pulling the car further and further to the inside as they make their way into the corner. But Albanese just parks it there on the apex, and Fairclough this time gets, oh goodness me, gets the cutback, I was going to say, and there's contact between the two of them, and Fairclough, well, I think just gradually returning to speed right now, but we will take a look back at that, I'm sure, as Albanese rejoins the circuit as well, and behind now Rick Jansen and Nigel Stock will try to close back up. But that was an incident which we'll need to take a look back at very shortly, because I think that could define the rest of the race for Albanese as he makes his way down towards turn number 10, and Fairclough will now try to run off into the distance and take this one as far as he possibly can before needing to come into the pits. Of course, is there damage to the cars? That'll be one question that both teams will now be looking at. But as we can see, the Team Racing Netherlands driver here, Jansen, closing up to the back of Albanese. They make their way through 11 and into 12. He's not coming through at the moment, but we are going to take a look back at what happened only moments ago. Well, as they're making their way into the corner here, and we ride on board with Fairclough. We're going to see it from his perspective as they make their way into the braking zone, and he was just on the inside but not fully committed to the position. I think that is how the contact happened effectively, where Albanese tried to turn in and he just clipped the front end of Fairclough's car. But one thing that did happen off camera, ladies and gentlemen, is that Fairclough backed off on the start, finished straight. We caught a brief glimpse of that before we went to the replay, and Albanese was let back through. So great sportsmanship shown by Fairclough here, and giving Albanese another opportunity to lead this race and have to defend. But I think this time Fairclough will now be wise to the fact he can't try to leave the nose in through turn number 7. Of course, not saying Fairclough caused the incident at all, but that seems to be what it was. It was the contact on Fairclough's nose versus the rear end of Albanese. But now, as they come roaring down towards turn 10, this time Fairclough's so close he can pretty much reach out of his window and touch the rear spoiler of what is Albanese's car. They make their way down towards turn 10, and Albanese will defend once again here as Janssen tries to close up behind them. But Faircloud this time, what can he do differently from Albanese? That is the question as they make the way out of the chicane and over the crest of the ridge of 11. But you can see Albanese having to defend even through 11 right now, as we see in the rearview picture Nigel Stock into the pits for an early pit stop. Could this undercut help him? We'll wait and see as Albanese is now on the outside, Faircloud on the inside. I think this is going to be the move as they make the way into the corner, but Faircloud just squeezed as tightly as possible as Albanese tries to hold on. They go into 2, they come over the hill into 3, and Faircloud gets the position, but can he hold it as Albanese tries to come back? But in the end, I think even Albanese knows not to go too wide in the run from 4 to 5, and he has to back out for a brilliant sequence of side-by-side action, and that's a Rick Janssen to try and get into this. We'll keep our eyes on how Nigel Stock does in the pits and where he comes out. But a brilliant battle for the lead in the end, and great sportsmanship shown between the two drivers, and that's what it's all about as they make the way through turn 6 and into 7 once again. And now Janssen will be looking to find his way on through as they make their way onto the back straight. The long run to the chicane awaits. As further back, I can tell you that Taylor right now in P6, where he's still chasing after Scott. These guys have been going at it like this for the best part of 6 to 7 laps right now, and well, it's good. It's one of those goodness gracious me situations whereby you'd think that Scott would have found a way to break away. You'd think that Taylor would have found a way on through. Well, speaking of drivers finding their way on through, we can see that Janssen now trying to find his way on through past Albanese. They briefly switch positions going into the chicane with Janssen having the outside line, but it's a situation again where now the Italian is going to defend here versus his BMW counterpart from the Netherlands. Excuse me, and as they make the way into turn 1, it's the case that we can see the back marker of what is Elwyn Sykes just moving out the way as Albanese gets a poor run out of 1, and as they make the way up through 2, it's 2 wide, but you can only go 1 wide through 4, and in the end Albanese holds on here. And to be fair, the number 45 car, he just knows how to position that car to make overtaking so difficult here as they make their way through the left hand of turn number 5 and head down towards turn number 6. Brilliant driving from Albanese all the same, and Janssen, to be fair, keeping his foot in it. But look who's closed up now. We've got the Castrol Motorsport machine of what is the Ferrari of James Neve that wants to get into this fight for the pro podium as they come on through the right hander of 7 here. Now of course Neve will have time, he will have the opportunity to study how Albanese is defending versus Janssen. He will have that chance to be able to see what works and what doesn't work versus the Italian, and right now we can see that Janssen trying to go all the way round once again. He's got a much earlier run this time. However, will this be enough for the Dutchman as they come into the braking zone? Albanese holds very tight to the inside and only opens his apex at the very end, and you can see, look who's trying to go round the outside as Janssen tries to go to the inside through the final part of the chicane, and it looks so Neve right now by trying to do that. As we see peeling into the pits there is Albanese. So Albanese yields in the end, but he's cost these drivers time. I think that was Albanese's strategy, just to cost them time and then go into the pits, and this could work out for him because he's brought these guys together right now as they make their way through the corners, and we can see behind them, my goodness, that is Scott behind them a lap down, and as they make their way on through the corners right now, Neve will have to battle with Janssen, but it's worked out, it should be pointed out, for Albanese, because if Neve now battles with Janssen and can't find his way on through, they will take time off of one another very rapidly indeed. As meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you that we've got Michael Seal right now who's having to defend versus Daniel Merchant as they make their way up to 2, and I think Seal has just made the move for P9 versus Merchant. Let's take a look back at how that happened. Well, he was looking on the inside here into turn 1, and Merchant not with the best of exits out of 12, and still in the end able to do it quite nicely through the corner, and then we saw them making their way up the hill and no change as they returned to a race pace as they make their way along and down towards turn number 6. Now as they come charging on through here, almost at the halfway point of the race right now, only one retirement so far, and that is Paul Colburn, I believe, although I think Dan Moore is also in the pits with trouble with the car. But where is Nigel Stocker here, you ask? He was the first driver to pit. He took a very early pit stop compared to his peers in the top 10. He's down in P17 right now, and Stock, in terms of his lap times, well, at the moment they're not that fast to us. They're actually quite a bit off, but I believe he's still got to get himself up to speed, so we'll wait to see what happens here. But meanwhile, speaking of things that happen, James Neve has found his way into P2 as he makes his way through turns 2 and 3 right now, and down through 4 he goes, as we can see Janssen there, and then Scott behind, and that is Scott as in Nathan Scott, who is stuck behind these guys a lap down, of course, and the only way he can pass is if he's got the pace to clear them and not have the blue flags waved at him once again. And let's take a look back at how the pass was made for P2 by James Neve on Rick Janssen. So it was in the run down here to turn 10. You can see Neve on the inside and Janssen not really defending this one. Instead deciding to let it go and looking for that potential run out the final corner. But you can see Janssen there just with a little bit of snap oversteer on the exit. He did have the run, but if it weren't for that oversteer, I think he would have been a bit closer and ahead into turn 12. And Neve in the end just having the confidence in that Ferrari to carry the speed through turn number 12 and go into 1 in the lead of that battle. And a brilliant move there by Neve to get it done and now carry on as he is starting to break away from Janssen slightly. He's opening that gap out a little bit, and that's to his advantage, of course. As meanwhile, further down, we can see Stuart Taylor here chasing after Scott. Once again, that is Paul Scott ahead of him, and well, these two inseparable here and literally tied together by a piece of string, you could say, as they make their way down for 11 and into 12. They've got traffic ahead of them. That's Elwin Sykes, of course, and at this point, what do they do in terms of utilising that traffic? Well, Elwin's going to stay on the outside, and we can see that both drivers flashing their lights to the back marker to say thank you, as we can see that Taylor goes a bit deep into 1. Oh, sorry, not Taylor. Scott goes a bit deep into 1, and Taylor tries to capitalise in the run up through 2 into 3. And Taylor, that's all he needed was one mistake from Scott to get it done. But how much time has it cost him? Of course, that is the big question. But in the end, Taylor, in the end, getting up into P4 after all is said and done. But can he hold it now as we ride on board the gearbox of the Ferrari driver? And as they come out of 5 and head up towards 6 at this point, into the double right-hand sequence they go, the slowest portion of the circuit, of course, and as they make their way on through, we can see it's a situation right now where Taylor, he's not able to make the break from what is Scott behind him, so as they emerge out of turn 7, will we see that BMW get closer in the image? Well, we'll have to wait and see as they head all the way down the straight here, and I do think at this point Scott's a bit too far back to capitalise. Perhaps he'll decide to do some fuel saving behind instead and not try and go for it. He's getting closer and closer, but as they now come through the drop here, it's not going to be enough to adventure for the inside line into the chicane, and instead he has to now wait and try to close up on the next lap. As meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that whilst they are trying to close up to one another, Daniel Merchant's as close as he'll ever want to be versus Seal, as Michael Seal goes defensive here. He makes Merchant go as tight as possible to the inside into turn 10, and Merchant is still there. He's not giving this one up, and as they make their way through, Seal has that inside line into the final part of the chicane, and Daniel Merchant now has to try and find a way back on through shortly as they make their way through the right-hander of 12, and as they come down through the sequence of corners to complete the lap and complete the halfway distance of the race, as Paul Walton is in to the pits, I can tell you. And he's made his way on in. We can see it's a situation where now Merchant doing everything he can in order to close back up to Seal after becoming close for a brief period of time. But as they make their way on through, we can see there it's their case that Seal getting it a bit wrong and bumping off circuit there through 3 and 4, just riding a bit too high on the apex curve of 4 in particular. And that's how hard these guys are having to push right now in order to stay in control of their positions. They are right on the limit as we see ahead. That does look to be a pass being made between Vessels and Sykes. I think Vessels coming on through and gaining a position as they make their way through the sequence of corners, and as they come on through, it is the case that right now Seal holding off Merchant. He's got enough of time of day to keep him safe. As we will Lambert Wedder ahead of these guys, battling with Kelly down into the chicane, and we can see that Wedder versus the Huracan driver of Kelly not able to find a way to get close enough right now as they make their way through 11 and down into 12. But as they come down the hill, it's one of those situations now with the field having spread out. We are waiting to see how those pit stops start to turn the field around and cause things to expand and contract with regards to the battles out on circuit. But I am interested to see where in particular Nigel Stock comes back into this for that early pit stop. And since the pit stop, Nigel Stock has not really been able to put down the laps. Well, actually, by my biscuit, ladies and gentlemen, he has been putting down the laps. Nigel Stock right now in P15 is doing high 119s on a regular basis. He's matching the leaders for pace. The only driver he's not matching for pace, and that is our overall leader, and that is Dean Fairclough. In fact, you can see Nigel Stock and Fairclough in the same picture, and that's how fast right now Fairclough is running here. He's literally taken the lead, and he's not let this one go. He is just running off into the distance. His last lap, an 18.73. The best lap of the race is also held by him, an 18.51. And Fairclough doing everything he needs to right now to bring this one home, but he's still got 28 minutes of racing plus the overtime on the final lap. It's not all said and done for a good amount of time, as meanwhile he crossed the line, an 18.4 here. Goodness me, the bar for the fastest lap just gets higher and higher, and Fairclough pushing this one all the way to the limit, as meanwhile Paul Scott Well, he's now trying to find his way back past Taylor here as we ride on board the BMW driver. And, well, it's been a long time coming where Scott would have to try and find his way past the Ferrari driver as Kelly's into the pits behind. Jansen ahead of him's also in. So right now, these two have got to make a play for this. And we see Scott. Oh, goodness me! And Scott on the inside there, almost putting what was Stuart Taylor up onto two wheels. And as we can see, Stuart Taylor into the wall. Oh, my goodness. And Taylor, well, that car is going to be very heavily damaged. And as he now looks to return to the circuit, the TGC Racing driver's got the entire lap to do, because if he jumps back to the pits now, he will lose a lap of race time, and that will only put him further down the order, and that Ferrari is worse for wear, considerably so. As let's take a look back at what happened there. So making their way down towards turn number 1 here, and as Scott went on the inside, Taylor there, I think, tried to turn on in, but saw Scott at the last moment, and the contact happened, and, well, I think Scott went for it as late as he possibly could to get the move in place, but Taylor ended up being launched off circuit there through the contact between the two of them, and that's going to be a very tricky one for the stewards to take a look at, but it's no doubt that Stuart Taylor right now has suffered for it as he tries to find his way back under racing rhythm, and despite the damage, he is pushing on, but that front axle suspension damage, particularly on the front left, which took an absolute hit into the wall, and even the front right off of the side of Scott's car right now. I think Stuart Taylor at this point is going to have to bring that car in, because I can't foresee him doing many more laps with the car in this condition. But meanwhile, with that happening, Lambert Wedder right now is closing up to Paul Scott very rapidly indeed, and the Dutchman here, I think, knowing that there is an opportunity to go on the offensive versus the wounded BMW ahead of him, Paul Scott, as they make their way into turn number 3, and as they come through 4 right now, Wedder all over the back here. He's got to be careful, of course, as he makes his way on down through the sequence of kinks that leads up to 5, because this is not the place to go for the move. He'll need to do it on the back straight if he's going to go for it. As they make their way through on the corners, we are hearing that Jack Wyborn is into the pits from the AM lead, and as he's coming to pits, Chris Keenan's also in from P2 in the AM class. That's happening off camera right now, but focusing on what's on camera here, Lambert Wedder will now look for that opportunity, and we can see Paul Scott going deep there into 7, and as they emerge from the corner now, it's a long run down towards the chicane, and Wedder's got the early jump here, and this is what he needs in identical machines, of course, with fixed setups in this series. It will be a major opportunity where we will see Wedder try to go for the move, and as they come roaring down towards the chicane, we can see Paul Scott goes defensive as they go into the drop here, and under braking, Wedder not able to find a way through the first part of the chicane, but could he find his way through it in the second part? That's also a prospect. Well, neither situation giving him that opportunity, and Wedder into the pits here, deciding enough's enough. He's going to try and do it on strategy. Paul Scott stays out, goes another lap. He goes on to lap 27 here. When will we see the reaction from Paul Scott to the drivers around him pitting? That will be the question. Meanwhile, in the AM class, I can tell you, having not pitted yet, Darren Doherty is now making his way around on circuit. In fact, it may be the case. I think, in fact, Darren Doherty has pitted. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. He has pitted at least once, the Altitude Esports driver, but his race has been rather tumultuous. I'm not sure if he's still due for a scheduled stop, and his first stop was to essentially do repair work on the car. But Darren Doherty is now your AM leader ahead of Mark Baker, who's currently coming through turn 6 and heading into turn 7. And it's Stefan Vessels down in P17 right now, P3 in the AM class, as he makes his way around on the circuit right now. Vessels heading up towards turn number 6. As he makes his way up towards the corner here, Chris Keenan behind, holding on to P4, and we can see there it's the case of letting Taylor through on the lead lap, as he's also got Mark Sykes behind him, the AM driver, who is a lap down on Chris Keenan, and Keenan giving him the space there. And one other thing to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, although this may not be apparent, Chris Keenan in the pit window has jumped Jack Wyborn, and here's Jack Wyborn, who's only behind him by a second right now, and Wyborn losing out in the pit window has now got to find a way past Chris Keenan out on circuit. But we do believe that at least Darren Doherty and also what is Stefan Vessels both have to pit again, because they were involved in opening lap incidents. We will wait to see, as Paul Scott is now your race leader off picture. But you can see there it's the case that Chris Keenan backing off and letting Wyborn through. Has Keenan got a problem with the car? Because we wouldn't expect him to do that, but it does look as though Chris Keenan really struggling in the car, letting Wyborn on through, and in fact Chris Keenan into the pits. So something has gone very wrong in the pits, and Chris Keenan feeling the pinch as a result, as he makes his way into the pit lane once again here. That is very unfortunate for Chris Keenan, and he's now in, and well, I believe going for another pit stop. But meanwhile, up front it is the situation where we can see Paul Scott leading right now, as Daniel Merchant's also into the pit. So all these pit stops still to to play out. But Deegan Fairclough right now absolutely flying after taking his pit stop. He's got a bit of traffic ahead of him, but then it's the case. Now, after he finds his way past Stefan Vessels, he's only got one car up the road, and that is Paul Scott, the best part of 12 seconds up the road. And Fairclough at this point, I think we'll be springing this one all the way home. But let's not count out Michael Sill here, who's already had one pit stop, and he is chasing down Fairclough. And in terms of lap times, Fairclough is lapping a second faster. And I do think at this point, Sill right now is up against it to take the win. But to take a P2 here, assuming he hasn't got to stop again, and with Paul Scott into the pits right now, it is feasible. Will he be able to do it? That's the question. As meanwhile, looking further down the order here in the battle for P6, it's a situation where we can see that James Neve ahead of Rick Janssen as they make their way through the chicane, and now Janssen's got to try and find his way past the Ferrari of what is Neve as they make the way up the hill and down in towards turn number 12 here to complete the lap. And as they come on through, the only drivers, it should be pointed out, who have yet to pit in terms of our leaders, well, there's only one who's yet to pit, as Paul Scott has come into the pit from what was the lead, and these guys will come on through as Paul Scott now emerges. He starts to come out of the pit lane very gradually. He's come off the jacks. It will be the situation that the only driver who's yet to pit out of our leaders is this man with the wounded Ferrari, the TGC racing machine of Stuart Taylor, who is still driving on with a wounded car, and credit to him to keep it together. In terms of his lap time, he's not lapping far off of the leaders right now. He's currently running on what are low 120s, much like Michael Sill and also what is Rick Janssen, but it is Gareth Williams behind him who is lapping 3/10 of a lap faster by comparison. So Williams is closing, and I think at this point Taylor just trying to extend this stint, trying to stay out of trouble or ending up in a battle until he absolutely needs to. As meanwhile, further down, we can see here it's Josh Kelly closing up to the back of Paul Scott after Scott has emerged from the pit lane. And as they come on through, the right-handers here, they push on and head down towards turn number 10. As they come roaring on through at this point, we can see Kelly closing up as much as he possibly can. And as they make their way down the back straight here, will he be able to find a way past Scott, or will he have to wait? I don't think he's got the overspeed here as they make their way into the braking zone. And as they come on down this time, there's no way through, or is there, as Kelly looks to the inside with a late move. He's come on through, and Kelly, coming from quite far back, does find a way up into P10. A nice move there, and immediately coming on through and putting what is between the two of them, Elwyn Sykes, as they make their way onto another lap. Onto the lead lap they continue. Stuart Taylor into the pits to repair the car and also to do his scheduled stop, and Sill also into the pits. And we were wondering if Sill was going on to the end. No, he's making his stop, so that does mean that your race leader is Deegan Fairclough, and your P2 driver, when all is said and done, is now Gareth Williams. Gareth Williams has made his one scheduled stop, we believe, so as a result he is in his final position that he will need to defend or try to gain from, as he is just dealing with the back markers right now of Tack and Keenan, both on separate laps, and Tack just trying to soldier on in P27, Keenan in P24. As they make their way down towards turn number 10. But whilst these guys are squabbling and trying to sort things out, it is the case that Rick Janssen in P4 is chasing after Neve here, trying to get onto that podium as they make their way down towards turn number 10. It's 20 minutes of racing still to go here, and the battle for P3 overall and in the Pro class could not be close as they make their way down into the braking zone. No change this time, however. They'll have to wait until the next lap. Further down the order, I can tell you that Daniel Merchant, after the pit window, is now behind Nigel Stock, and Nigel Stock really having not worked out on that opening pit stop here, and it does look as though the Ford GT driver has fallen off the pace considerably as they make their way down towards the chicane, and as they head on into the braking zone. Merchant not close enough this time to go for the potential move, looking for that opportunity, but nowhere near close as they now emerge from the corner and head around onto lap, what is for them lap number 31 it is lap number 31 very shortly, as they come through the right hander there, and as they make their way into turn 1 once again. We see a bit further up the road, oh goodness me, and what has happened here? We've got James Neve off circuit and Rick Janssen coming on through. What has happened to Neve, who was doing very well, and now he's lost out of position? Was there contact with another driver? Was he making his way out of 5 here? There was contact with Tack. Tack knocked him off the circuit there, and I think Tack just not realising that Neve was trying to make his way through early on the exit of 5 up into 6, and Neve with a bit of damage and has lost a position for it. As we now look back to live pictures here, and now Neve will do everything he can to close up to the back of Janssen. As you can see, Tack immediately pulling out the slipstream here in the run down to the chicane in order to try and cut some of that overspeed as they make their way on through. Behind them It's a situation where Kelly right now chasing after Wedder here, the Team Racing Netherlands driver in the foreground, and then the Indian Motorsport driver behind him as they make their way out of the corner. And we ride on board here with the Englishman as they make their way through turn number 12. As they go on to another lap here, what can Kelly do versus the BMW, which has it on the straight, but it does seem as though the Lamborghini Huracan has it through the corners and also in those brief acceleration zones. Well, I think the key thing he's got to do is capitalise through the opening two sectors where the handling characteristics of the Lamborghini will be favourable, and then just hope he's able to get close enough to keep himself tight to the back of that BMW down the back straight as they make their way up into turn number 5 here. And as they come through the left-hander, you can see the Englishman balancing the throttle as much as he can to get the best possible rotation, but he's not really closing up as much as he would like as they come roaring down towards turn number 6. And as they make their way, you can see the differences in lines there. Kelly taking a much tighter line on entry into 6 compared to what is Wedder, and using a more aggressive approach to try and cut the deficit as they now make their way onto that back straight. But it's the case, he will gradually close up now, Kelly, but he's not close enough to go for a move here. So we can see Wedder being buffeted by Walton ahead right now. Paul Walton ahead of the pair of them and being closed up gradually, as you can see Walton briefly in the background of the shot as they make their way up into the braking zone. And Kelly coming in very heavy on the brakes here at the last possible moment. I think that's the way he's going to do it. He's going to look to do it very late on the brakes into the chicane because he's the latest braker of them all into that corner. But meanwhile, the head of this pack, Paul Walton, the RD Simsport driver, after what was a disastrous start, is now in P6. And he has already made multiple pit stops, it should be pointed out. But the question for Walton will be, does he have to make another? Well, if he does have to make another, that would be an absolute disaster in terms of where he's going to finish inside the top 10. But if he doesn't right now, to have recovered to P6 after everything he's gone through in this race would be a huge achievement as he makes his way through. And we can see just up the road is Stefan Albanese, but between Walton and Albanese, the back markers attacking Keenan. You can see immediately Walton trying to clear tack in the run down towards turn number 6. And as they make their way down into the corner right now, behind them we do have Lammett Wedder, who will now try to come on through as well. As meanwhile ahead we can see that Janssen and Neve are still a nose to tail in the long run down the back straight here. No change between the two of them so far as they come roaring on down, but definitely one of those situations where I think it's going to gradually build up to a crescendo here, because Neve has been inching closer and closer lap after lap. And to give you an idea of the delta between the two of them, Janssen really struggling by comparison with Neve for overall lap time. In fact, on that last lap, James Neve a second faster than Janssen as they make their way through turn number 12 and through onto another lap once again. They emerge from that final corner. They head into turn 1 here, and it's going to be Neve who looks at a move. He goes for it late, and on the brakes here, Janssen respects the fact he's got a Ferrari on his inside, and as they make their way up the hill here, they're side by side into 2-3, and as they come into the right-hander of 3, we can see that Neve getting the move done, but can he now hold on to it? That's the big question as they make their way out of 4 and in the run down to 5. We're right on board the gearbox here of Neve as he makes his way in the run up into 5. Now as they come through the left-hander and charge down towards 6, you can see that Neve is starting to drop Janssen here, but remember he needs to drop him by at least half a second coming out of turn 7, as otherwise Janssen's going to close up massively in the run down the back straight into the chicane, and that's what Neve will have in his mind. He needs to make the break, and he's doing so successfully as they now emerge from the corner. And now the truth will tell as they charge down towards turn 10. It's a long run, and we can see that Neve holding on for the time being, but meanwhile the BMW behind him gets closer and closer and closer, but it's not enough surely for Janssen to now come through as they go into the braking zone. And instead we can see that Janssen backs off and lets Neve go for the time being, looking to come back later as they make their way through the corners. But as they come on through, we see meanwhile a bit further back we've got Walton here, who's got Wyborn just ahead of him. Jack Wyborn in what is P3 in the AM class, P18 overall, and Walton now trying to find his way on through as they make their way through the corners. Meanwhile, just behind we can see Lammett Wedder and Kosh Kelly making their way onto the lap as we see Walton coming on through. And Wedder still holding on to that P7 for the time being in the Pro class as they emerge from turn 1 and up the hill they go into 2 and 3. But what can Kelly do in order to close up? I mean, he has been closing very rapidly on the second half of the lap, particularly in the braking zone for the chicane. And as they make their way through the sequence of downhill corners and head up in towards turn 5, it's the case right now that Wedder just trying to hold on, trying to keep Kelly at bay. As we can see Wyborn ahead now, getting ready to move out of the way most likely, with the blue flag starting to wave as they make their way into the right-hander of 6. Now as they come on through, 13 minutes of racing remaining here, it does look as though we can see Wyborn opening the steering lock there in order to give the space to both the drivers behind them. They do have what appears to be, well, that's Wyborn behind them, and then we've got further back, it is Keenan who will be coming up as well. Keenan a lap down on Wyborn himself, so 2 laps down on the driver we're looking at. And as they make the way down towards turn 10 at this point, we can see Kelly trying to close up. Will he look for it from this far back? Surely not. Under braking this time. No. He gets a little closer, but not enough to contest. Instead, he waits once again here as he looks to that P7. Meanwhile, a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that Nigel Stock has been passed by Daniel Merchant. He was passed a couple of laps ago by the Frenchman. He's now down to P12. And as a result, this strategy has not worked out. As meanwhile, Kelly here gets in very close to the back. As we look back to the battle for P7, we can see that Kelly very close to the back of Wedder as they make the way up their hill. And this is going to be a great opportunity for the Englishman to simply look on the inside and not force a move, but try to psychologically trip Wedder into making a mistake. But he's not able to do it this time. In fact, he's lost a lot there coming through turns 3 and 4. And as a result, he's now got it all to do again as they make their way through 5 and down towards 6. But as they come charging on through the corners, it's one of those situations where I think he's trying just to get the Dutchman to make a mistake, trying to psych him out, but nothing is working so far. As meanwhile, Nathan Scott here, we can see it's just come past Mark Baker. Mark Baker, of course, the AM driver, Scott the pro driver here, so not battling for position in class, battling for position overall, but we can see that Mark Baker lifted off there in P2 in the AM race right now, and with damage on the rear of the car, you can see that rear wing a bit mangled on one side here, and the Team Tetra Rouge driver, I think at this point, is just trying to nurse the car home. His main competitor for P2, Jack Wyborn in P3, is 3.5 seconds back and gradually closing here, but with 11 minutes to go right now, if Baker can keep up the current pace, he will be absolutely fine in terms of being able to hold on to that P2, as we see Gareth Williams into the pits here, so he's coming for his scheduled stop, so he was not running to the end, and as a result this will promote a lot of drivers up and open the door to even more drivers trying to find places at the very end. But meanwhile, Paul Walton, who you have to say is all over the back of Albanese now, the figures, of course, he's come up against the one driver who nobody wants to battle with because he defends so much, and as they make their way down through 4 and into 5, you can see Walton all over the back of Albanese as they come up into turn number 5, but this is not the place to be this close. He wants to be this close towards the end of the lap as they go onto the back straight. You can see Albanese squeezing the door shut as Walton tries to do the feint to the inside. He cuts back to the outside. He makes Albanese stay on the inside line. It doesn't work. The dummy does not. Duke Albanese into a mistake, but Albanese outbrakes himself into turn 6. It's now a drag race down towards turn number 10 here, and you can see it's the battle between the BMW power and the Lamborghini power as they make the way all the way down the straight. Walton getting the slip on Stefan Albanese as they make their way on through, but now look at the BMW driver tucks into the slipstream here. They come into the drop for turn 10. Walton on the inside, Albanese on the outside as they pan past the camera, and as they make the way under braking, you can see Walton having to really put the car onto the apex there and just say to Albanese, enough's enough, it's my position and I am taking it with me, as they make the way over the hill and into the drop to turn 12. Walton up into P4 and getting the job done as he makes his way onto, for him, what is lap number 38, as Albanese now looks to find a way back. Can he find one? I think it's going to be a tall order right now as Walton will try to fly away, but you never know what could happen here. It's just one mistake and they come back together again, and this circuit, of all circuits we've raced out over the course of this season so far, has proven to perhaps be the one that's caught out drivers the most as they make the way on through. Meanwhile, further back we see Daniel Merchant looking for the move on Gareth Williams, who's come out ahead of him after the pit stop. Gareth Williams emerged in P10, and as they make the way over the crest of the ridge here through turn 3 and into 4, we can see that Merchant right now holding it firm and not being able to gain on Williams, in fact falling back slightly. As a bit further up the road we can see still stuck behind Lambert Wedder is Kelly as he makes his way into turn number 7. Does Kosh Kelly coming through the right hander as they make their way down towards what is turn number 10 once again. I think it's the case that the Lamborghini driver at this point has got to try and be inventive and find another way through. This is not going to work, the current setup, and instead it's just leading to him being tucked in behind the Dutchman as they come roaring on down. Now what can he do differently is the question. Well, he's got to find a way to close up more through the opening 2 sectors, because he can get close going into the chicane. We know how strong he is on the brakes. He's making the brakes work hard, but the problem is he needs to be closer before he can force one of his rather long distance sends, trying to do a Daniel Ricciardo style braking move into the corner. Daniel Ricciardo from Formula 1, of course, known for his late braking and coming from very far back. But meanwhile, speaking from very far back, we can see that Nigel Stock will most likely likely do no such thing with the brakes of the Ford GT as he makes his way for the right-hander of 12 here in the pursuit of Daniel Merchant for P11 overall and P11 in the Pro class as both drivers make their way through turn number 1. And as we ride on board here with the Ford GT driver as he comes up into turns 2 of 3, just balancing the car through the right-hander here of 3, bouncing over the car. Oh, goodness me! And it looks as though their Merchant's made a mistake and stocks up a position. It already takes one small mistake and Daniel Merchant drops the place. Nigel Stock gains a position there, but Merchant right on the limit, I reckon, of what was feasible and just pushing it a bit too far as he made his way over the apex curve there of the sequence of corners and culminated in turn 3, sending him a little bit wider and unsettling the car, and it culminated in the pass at turn number 4. But now Merchant will try to come on back as meanwhile, looking a bit further up the road, we can see that Stefan Albanese now under pressure from Wedder and Kelly behind, and I think now the Italian driver, seeing that he's in P5, will try to hold on to that top 5 finish until the very end of this race as he makes his way down for 11 and into 12 right now. And as the Italian comes through at this point, what can he do versus the 2 drivers behind? Well, the good news for him, and he'll probably have already noticed this, is that he'll know that Wedder and Kelly are fighting one another, and Kelly in particular has been trying to find a way into P6 for some time. So when Albanese feels that pressure, what he will most likely do is back things up and essentially force the 2 behind to fight. But speaking of a fight that's building up, we can see that Gareth Mills here trying to find his way past Chris Keenan as they make the way up the hill in towards turns 2 and 3. Mills in P23 battling for P22 with Keenan ahead of him as they make their way through the quarters right now. And there's no way on through for Mills as he has to settle on down and make his way through towards turn number 5. But meanwhile, further up, I can tell you that Kelly right now all over the back of Wedder, and this is the closest he's ever been through the sequence of quarters of turns 6 and 7, and this is what he needs to be this close. And has Wedder pushed too far? Has he overdone it on the tyres as they make their way down the straight here towards turn number 10 once again here? But you can see just how little it all matters when you've got that BMW just able to pull away, plus it's got the distant toe of what is Albanese ahead right now. And I think Kelly at this point, well, he's the closest he's been. He's looking for it, so he's going to go for it here from very far back, and under braking he locks the brakes up and he goes deep, but Kelly not afraid to go for the move, and he almost made it count just a little too deep. And I think Wedder there was caught by surprise. I don't think he expected to see that Lamborghini come from so far back, but Kelly now showing to Wedder, you're going to have to defend that inside if I'm within 2.5 tenths of you every time, because I will send it. And Kelly, to be fair, doing a very good job of making it clear he was going to send it. But I do think that Wedder's heart might be in mouth right now as they make their way through 3 and into 4 and head on through 5 minutes of racing remaining. And of course the one lap that they finish on as they make their way down through 4 and head up towards 5. And right now you'd have to imagine whilst the lead is sorted, Deegan Fairclough in a world of his own, 33 seconds up the road. Kelly, Wedder and Albanese still to settle the battle for P5. How will it all turn out? That will be the big question as they make their way through turn 6 and into 7 once again here. And we can see Renus Van Hammeren there in the YouTube chat, who would be taking part in this series but cannot due to circumstances. Gutted that he can't drive. We do miss you, Renus, but we hope you can return sooner rather than later, because your lack of presence is felt out on the circuit. But meanwhile, looking back to what's happening right now further down the pack, we see that Mills and Keenan still battling for position here, and this is the battle for what is P5 in class as they make their way all the way around and head on down towards what is turn number 10 here in the Porsche versus the BMW. We have seen this time and time again how the Porsche has the stronger acceleration and then needs to be tucked in very tight to the slipstream of the BMW to have the run down the straight into the corner. You can see the carbon ceramic brakes, particularly on the rear of that Porsche, lighting up, glowing red. They're red hot. I think Mills at this point really trying to push on, as meanwhile I believe it's the case that Paul Scott has just been past it, and Paul Scott having a very slow run as Paul Scott got a problem with the car. This is moving very slowly, and I'm wondering if Paul Scott's got an issue, because that is a lot of places lost. As you see ahead, it's the case that Michael Seal finds his way through, and Mark Baker going off circuit. And where's Mark Baker? Oh goodness me, and Mark Baker involved in an incident. We've had multiple things happen. We're also hearing that it's a case that I think Kelly has found his way past Wedder, or has he? No, he has not found his way on through. So a lot has happened off camera whilst we're looking at the battle further back. Let's just take a look back at what has happened specifically. So firstly, Kelly versus Wedder. Well, this was only moments ago, so we did see this. This is out on the circuit. This is not a repeat of the previous move, I don't think. No, it was not a repeat, so not to worry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Further down, however, what happened with what was Mark Baker. So this is in the run up the hill, and that's Michael Sill, and the two of them went side by side, and Baker in the end simply squeezed onto the grass there and had nowhere to go, and then Paul Scott clipped him coming over the hill, and that is why Paul Scott is now going slowly out of the circuit as we return to the live pictures. And meanwhile, I can tell you that Lamberto is looking for the move here, and Albanese into turn one. They come on through with 3 minutes remaining, and Albanese here, I think, has been caught shy as they make them up the hill. But look at this, they're trying to go 3 wide, and you can see Kelly's now going to try and come on through with Albanese out of position. There's a small bit of contact, but I think Albanese has been caught napping as he's let 2 through for the price of 1 corner. And as they make their way down towards turn number 5 right now, it is the case that Wedder has finally found a way to get past the Italian, as we can see that Albanese going a bit wide there out of turn 5, and having to be wary of those track limits as Kelly has also found his way on through. Now, how did that happen, I hear you ask? Well, here we go, we're about to see. So they were side by side coming down into the chicane, and now Albanese defending as you typically do, of course. But where did Wedder gain here? Was they made their way on out of the corner. We can see Wedder had a really good run out of the chicane, and he made the move on the inside into turn number 12. They were side by side through 12, gave one another the space, but in the end Wedder just simply had the overspeed, had the inside line, and Albanese, to be fair to the Italian, he tried to hold it around the outside, but in the end just did not have the apex speed to be able to carry it round, and that was how the move got done, and how Kelly then came on through, taking the natural racing line. But what a brilliant move from Wedder in order to get a position, and Kelly to come on through as well. Brilliant driving from the pair of them, and Albanese to try and go around the outside into turn 1 is no mean feat. As meanwhile, I can tell you that Rick Jansen here trying to close down Paul Walton, and to be fair, we haven't really talked about it. If Walton is going to the end right now, which I'm sure he is, because we will have one more lap after this one, it will be the case that Paul Walton has come from the back of the field after doing an additional stop, and that should be emphasised, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Walton, our driver in P3, has done 2 pit stops compared to the leaders doing 1 because of the damage he picked up earlier on, and right now he has got Rick Jansen all over the back of him with 1 more lap to go after this one. The leader is now on the final lap. Deegan Fairclough has made his way through turn 1 onto lap number 45, but these two have got 1 more lap of racing to go, and Walton is doing everything he needs to hold on as he makes his way down into turn number 10. Into the heavy braking zone they go. Can Walton hold on, or will it be a BMW in P1 and P3 on the podium as they make their way onto the final lap very shortly? And Walton, if he can bring this around, this will be a huge turnaround and a championship contending race as he makes his way onto that final lap. The white flag is now out, and he's making his way on through here as P2's only up the road in the forward. James Neve here in P2. So as they make their way through the corners at this point, Walton holding on as Paul Scott's just left the pit lane after the damage picked up on the car. Very unfortunate, of course, for Paul Scott, as we can see that Walton opening up that gap right now versus Jansen. Jansen's stronger on the full straights, on that back straight in particular, in the run through 6 and 7 as they make their way on through. But as they come on through, well, what do you have to say about this man who started at the back of the pack? He found his way through very rapidly indeed. As he makes his way through the final corner, it's back-to-back victories for Deegan Fairclough from the United Kingdom as he crosses the line. Your winner of the feature race at Road Atlanta, and P2, when all is said and done, it's the case that already the winner for the AM class in P13 has crossed line. Darren Doherty is your winner in the AM class for Altitude Esports. A brilliant drive from the Irishman, bringing it home there in a fantastic fashion. But meanwhile, it will be in P2 overall when all is said and done. James Neve, as he comes through the final sequence of quarters here, he has been absolutely consistent throughout this race. It's been a brilliant drive for the number 207 car as he comes through the right-hander here. It will be P2 for Neve. Walton in the end with a recovery to P3, Jansen in P4, and then it's going to be Lambert Wedder who found his way to P5 in the end, ahead of Kosh Kelly, and then Stefan Albanese in P7 overall, as Michael Sill will then come through the final quarter to take P8. Gareth Williams will then come through in P9 when all was said and done, with Nigel Stock just behind him coming home in P10, a top 10 finish finish for both drivers, and it's Daniel Merchant ahead of what is Matthew Prouting, who now comes down the hill as he makes his way through the corner. And then it will be, as those drivers have now finished their lead lap. In terms of the rest of the AM class, Jack Wyborn finished P18, and that is P2 in the AM class. Then Stefan Vessels was P3 in the AM class, P19 overall. Mark Baker, coming out of the final corner, will now complete his race, P20 overall, P4 in class, and then it will be P5 in the AM class for Chris Keenan when all is said and done. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers make their way around the circuit, we'll go silent once again as our drivers respect the passing of Sir Frank Williams. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, with Chris Keenan being the final driver to bring it into the pits, we will be back very shortly for the post-race interviews. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back for our post-race interviews with our winners in the feature race, and we'll start off in the traditional fashion this time of talking to our pro winner, Deegan Fairclough. We'll just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will bring him into the interview room. Hello, Deegan, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Deegan, another brilliant drive from yourself, coming home the winner in the feature race. How's it feel to have come all the way from the back of the field?
Yeah, it feels amazing. I'm super happy, over the moon with that result. Couldn't have gone better tonight. Yeah, thank you everyone for the support, and literally congratulations and great racing from everyone out on the track today. That was brilliant.
Now, I do have to ask, you gained so many places on the open laps. Just take us through that opening 2 laps, because you went from P29 with the retirement of Paul Colburn, all the way up to, I think it was somewhere in the region of P12 or P10 in 2 laps?
Well, yeah, there was a huge accident in front of me, and I was like, oh, please, I don't want to get caught in this. And then I luckily just weaved my way through. Not just flat out and plow through, but I just took patience and thank God everyone behind was patient as well and didn't go flying into the rear end and take more people out. And it was just brilliant from everyone, really. The track is absolutely brilliant with old tyres. It's literally on edge everywhere. I'm starting to have a sweet spot for the track now. It's been brilliant.
Oh, well, that's fantastic to hear. And once you'd taken the lead after what was a number of laps, well, before you got into the lead, we did see you come up behind Stefan Albanese, and the Italian with a reputation for defending very hard but fairly. Was it going through your mind as well, I've got to get past him as soon as possible, as he's going to back me up into the field?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Sorry, my mic just cut out. Yeah, I mean, I at that point, because I was pushing so hard at the start to catch up, I was just like, I might save some tires behind. And then I saw him go so defensive, so I was like, well, we're gonna lose so much time. And then I just tried to go for a move, and then we had a little bit of contact. He went off the track, and then I just I let him back through because like I don't want him to either protest thinking it's my fault, and so I just let him have the position back and then went racing again, and it was brilliant and close.
Oh, definitely. It was great sportsmanship shown from yourself to let him back into the lead after the contact between yourselves. And after you had passed him on the second attempt, from that point onwards, was it still head down, or did you start to think about sort of calming things down a little bit? What was going through your mind once you got into the lead and made the break?
Well, it was literally just head down and keep going and just pretend like the back marker's the race leader and just go and keep going and pushing hard. And then when the pit stop came along, I had the perfect amount. Literally, it was running out of fuel at the very end. It was like 1 lap when I was coming across the line. So it was spot on there. And yeah, super happy.
Oh, that's brilliant. And one last question for yourself. Looking from Road Atlanta now to a circuit closer to home in the United Kingdom, i.e. Silverstone, how are you feeling for the high-speed circuit in a week's time?
I mean, I can't wait. Silverstone's an amazing track. Super excited. Get some testing in before it, and yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in a week's time at Silverstone, but until then, congratulations on the 2 wins out of 2 tonight. A brilliant night for racing from yourself.
Thank you very much. Great commentating as well, mate.
Oh, thank you very much, Deegan, but we look forward to seeing you again in a week's time.
All right, take care. Thank you.
So hearing there from Deegan Fairclough, very pleased with the result. And again, the sportsmanship that he was referring to when he let Stefan Albanese back into lead on the exit of turn number 7 because of the contact between the two of them, which was absolutely touching to see. And that comment there from Fairclough as well about I don't want to win for an unfair move. And really a very well done race. Fortunate, of course, to come through with the incident at the start of the race, but that's sometimes what you've got to do when you start from the back. You've got to take those opportunities as they arise. Now, speaking of taking opportunities, let's have a chat with Darren Doherty, who I believe has taken an opportunity to get a fantastic result today. Hello, Darren, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Paul.
Darren, a brilliant drive from yourself to bring home the win in the feature race in the AM class. How's it feel to stand atop of the podium?
Oh yeah, what a roller coaster night that was. Obviously the feature race, the false start at the first one, because I was taken out shortly after lap 3. So yeah, it's always a challenge starting in the midfield with the pro drivers coming through. But I think once you find your pace and you stay out of the way of the guys, and they show respect, then it was pretty much sailing from there, staying out of trouble.
Indeed, it did look as though with the second starting of the race, you had a bit more of a peaceful start compared to, as you say, being taken out in the opening version of the feature race. But with regards to navigating that midfield, just take us through from your perspective. You're having to balance that push for the lead in the AM class versus letting the pros through and the strategy on top. What's going through your mind, or what are you thinking about most in that situation? Is it sticking to the strategy, or is it more about just finding that place on circuit?
I think it's trying to hold the position while not losing it. I think it's for the arms. I think it is stressful because not only are you looking in front of you and trying to stay close to get the draft, you're also looking behind you to see the faster driver. So you're looking at your relative to see, is it a faster car behind me, a pro driver, and if so, where can I let off a bit to let them through, or where's the best gap? Because the last thing you want is them getting frustrated, making a dive and taking you out. So I think the second start of the feature race was, as I said, it was no incidents the whole through that race. The pros did come through when they needed to. They waited until the straights, which made it a plain sailing, I'd say, after the first 15-20 minutes.
Oh, indeed. And we could see that when they were coming up behind you on that back straight, letting them come on through. And then with regards to the strategy, did everything go to plan, or did you have to adapt things? Was there more fuel in the car than you expected, or was it sort of everything tick the boxes, have the pit stop and just bring it home?
No, if you watch, I came in real early. At the pits, I came in very, very early at the pit stop. The reason is there were 2 cars in front of me. Can't mind who it was now, but there was 2 armed drivers in front of me that were battling, and they were slowing me down. So the minute the pit window opened, I came in really, really early. I think in around 25th minute. So that's about 15-20 minutes earlier than you would expect. So then when you come back out, you're carrying more fuel, so you're slow, and obviously then you'll start to pick up the pace towards the end of the race. But I had to do that because if I stayed behind them any longer, I was slowing myself down about a second a lap. So I took the pit stop early.
A sensible approach, and it worked to your advantage, and in the end meant that you came home with the win. And now looking ahead to in a week's time to Silverstone, how are you feeling for the British circuit?
Well, I haven't raced Silverstone yet in iRacing, so I'll be leaning on my colleagues, Mark Fletcher and Tom Daswell, for some coaching. But I will prepare myself, yes.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in a week's time at Silverstone, but until then, congratulations on a brilliant win in the feature race, and we look forward to you in a week's time.
Great show, Paul. Thanks very much again. Good commentating. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. You have a lovely evening.
And you too, Paul.
So hearing there from Darren Doherty, very happy with the result, and you could hear there when he was saying about the fact the strategy did not go to plan and instead had to adapt the strategy in order to undercut 2 AM drivers ahead of him who were battling fiercely and cost him a second of time. And brilliant strategic reaction there from Doherty in order to get himself the space he needed in order to be able to go on the offensive to take the winning class. But as we come away from our post-race interviews, it's now time for us to conclude. Thank you very much for watching tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community and the series we run, why not check us out? Our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, our official Facebook group, that is facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a big thank you to our partners without whom Lobby 2 would not be possible. That is Coach Dave Academy, that's coachdaveacademy.com, and Next Level Racing, nextlevelracing.com. But next time, we head to Silverstone for round number 4, Wednesday the 8th of December 2021, and we'll be coming into what is the second quarter of the season, halfway through the first half. And if anything is going to be a given here, is that this circuit, as we return to European soil for the first time in this championship, it is going to be somewhat different from our American counterparts, where it's all about the downforce and it's all about maintaining the high speed through the sweeping corners here, as demonstrated in the reference lap here in the Mercedes AMG, as we see our driver making their way through turns 2 and 3, the legendary circuit, of course, the British circuit, one of the homes of British motorsport, and indeed a staple on any motorsporting calendar. Matt Emmons behind the wheel here as he takes us around in the background for the reference lap, a track which we're expecting is going to be the culmination of everything we've seen in the opening 3 rounds rounds, and really we from this point onwards will start to see the championships open up and the contenders start to rise, and those battling for the midfield also start to make their cases for trying to make progression. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, it's goodbye from us at Next Gen Racing. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.